Is that your theme music?
It's one of them.
Is
Welcome.
that your theme music?
Welcome.
Is
One of them.
that your theme music?
Are you talking about the World of Cairne intro or just what's playing?
No, it was like you were going dear, 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 dear.
Oh no, that's my personal theme music. I've always got a theme song running through my head for every moment of my life. It's kind of weird, but
I love it.
we are here, ladies and gentlemen, once again, for another night of the round table, where we will meet and greet and chew the fat and talk about things that have happened and things that are yet to be and things that are happening right now, and we may even get into some quantum entanglement. Who knows?
That would be a lot.
Stranger things have happened. I've updated our overlay just a little bit. I've got two new slideshows going. I have been updating the artwork with the source material, including the stuff that I haven't actually published. It's almost 600 images, so there's a lot there. Also have a little title card in the lower quarter there if you're curious about what's playing in the background. But hopefully you're paying more attention to us, because these guys are worth paying attention to. They have a lot of interesting things to say, and I'm looking forward to hearing at least 75% of them. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Would you guys like to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Don't all jump up at once. It's cool. There's like 5,000 people watching. They all want to know you, I promise. 5,000. Number's climbing.
Hello.
There you go, see? So, we have ended the last chapter of this insane, lengthy, epic tale. 2 campaigns over 4 years, I think, and
Yup.
we are tipping into the final chapter of both story arcs. We finally hit the final chapter of this one, of Cairne. And things are getting intense and getting intenser. My artistic license, I'm using words I made up. But
Pro tip: all words are made up.
This is true.
Yeah, I never thought Uki would be missing the T until now.
God, weren't those the days when we lived in a very safe metal box?
Under the toxic ocean.
Yeah, it's like Uki may have felt claustrophobic, but now it's like, we're not really like outside anymore, and we're not under the ocean right now, probably, but we've been under the ocean.
Yeah. You're actually very far above it now. You've gone from one extreme to the other.
Exactly. From the depths of the ocean to space.
Don't say I never take you places.
Well, and the thing too is the Ortiz not being neglected. The Ortiz is in a much better shape than it was as we left it, because not only will the moon pool cover be fixed, but also I'm sure that the cannons will get a lot of love. Don't think any of the Harvestedians are going to let something with that kind of firepower on it just sit there and not make sure it's maintained. I mean, there's, that's routine maintenance.
No, you're absolutely right.
They're gonna have it sitting up on the wall, pointing out at the water, cannons armed.
They like cannons. They have a whole brigade of cannoneers. So, for those of you who may be just joining us, and I won't dwell too long on this, this is not our first round round table discussion that we've had. But like I said, a lot has happened from the pre-cataclysmic days on through the cataclysm, beyond, into realms unknown and known, surviving the aftermath of the apocalypse, traversing a ravaged world, enduring social, political, and economic unrest, horrors spawned from pure and unadulterated darkness, reams and reams of undead horrors and shadows that seem to come alive. We've traversed the spirit realm. We've delved into psychic shenanigans. We've uncovered lost societies, secrets, and places. Touched base with splinters of divinity that are no longer part of the world. And gone into the deepest depths of the toxic ephemeral sea, and out again on into orbit, where we now reside atop the floating skull of an ancient primordial goddess that hovers around the planet like a moon.
Basically is our moon.
Yes, it is, definitely. And we are here now, and now all of these moments that have been kind of slinkying into place one after the other are going to start finally falling into place, and things that were up in the air will start being answered, questions and confusions will be cleared, hopefully, and secrets will be unleashed, the likes of which the party has never seen before. Which I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
I bet
That's
you
why
are.
they're called.
What's that?
That's why they're called secrets.
I've been holding on to these for a long time. Some of these, like a really long time. It's been chomping at the bit to tell people, and I'm like, nope. But yes, finally, we're teetering on the edge. So, this last chapter, that inadvertently took us down into the ravaged dwarven realms of Underhome, and through them, and then out into the spirit realm unexpectedly, and from the spirit realm finally to the domes of the Shining Eyes. Is there anything with you guys that just stands out as like something you really enjoyed? I'm curious what made an impact on you.
That's a fascinating question.
If anything, if nothing did, it's okay. You can tell me.
I mean, I got like a couple.
Yeah. What you got?
I got like a couple. So I wasn't necessarily happy about the first one at the time, but I can't deny that it made an impact, like a powerful impact. I'm gonna go with Master Miss playing through Genesis's illness.
Yes. Honestly, kudos to Master Miss.
Yeah, that was firm commitment to the bit.
I'm extremely pleased with how well you roleplayed that. I really am.
Oh yeah, you roleplayed that great.
Which means I will not be afraid to tap you in the future to do horrible things to your party members.
How about we don't do that?
Please, I'm dying. I have 2 hit points. No, that was it was very stressful to play through at the time because we had so little information to work with. But, just kind of throwing Wilhelm at the problem until something stuck, it added a lot of tension to that whole sequence. It really gave it a direction.
Bechlorite spaghetti is now canon.
See, I also really loved Uki with the hard read in the well area. I forget what it was technically named, but Uki spends roughly 30 seconds in the corner looking at some corpses and says, "We gotta go. We gotta get out of here." Completely correct.
Yeah, Uki's not one to back down from a fight. You all know that. She's learned a lot of how do you say, patience or consideration with this group. But yeah, when there's a time to go, you got to GTFO.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed that.
That was fun. I always love seeing you guys' reactions to things as they become like openly apparent. Things that kind of hinge on the edges for a bit, and then suddenly, like, bam! Those moments of realization, I really, really enjoy. Like Draken, how well he's played into my evil hands.
God.
I actually really enjoy that. You know, he has stayed true to the character from day one and has never compromised who he was, including now. I think in many ways, in my opinion, and granted it's not my character, but in many ways I think Draken's still not compromising. He's always been on the hunt for power, and this is just another avenue towards it, one that he probably never even expected, but seems to be more than willing to take full advantage of.
Absolutely, but still, like, he's still very much Draken and uncompromising in that he, came to save Bryn when she was attacking, like, the nightmare, even after the angler was like, "Ooh, why don't we watch this one dive?" And he was just like, "No, I care about this person. I'm going to help her out." And, of course, the angler retaliated by taking away all that power, but,
You are correct. Draken wants power. He's also looking forward to not having to punch up into things, being able to just punch across.
Yeah.
And Draken has never been good.
Yes. As we discovered when he nuked the bar in Sigil.
Yep.
Yeah. Draken is not a good person. He is neutral. And when the time comes, he will do everything. Hell, Draken's gonna try to learn how to use souls for power and start making deals of his own.
I mean, you might be competing with Bryn on that because she's literally the daughter of an archfey who leads the hosts of the air, like the parade of the spirits of the dead and the fae spirits, like whenever the veil is thin.
I don't know, Draken's about to come into a tremendous amount of power. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what he does with it. And that's something that will probably play out in future campaigns even. Draken's going to be part of the scenery after this, I imagine. Depending, obviously.
I assume there will be a point in time that I hand Draken to. I understand that I have Draken currently, but there is going to be a point in time when he becomes an NPC.
Yeah, well, you will always have some reins on what Draken is and does, no matter what. He's your creation and has been for this long. I would never dream of taking him fully away from you. Draken's he's an icon, I think, in our campaign worlds.
He's an OG.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you ever see glitter again throughout the rest of your entire life, you will probably think, "Oh, Draken's been here."
I got a Ginkgo question. You there, Ginkgo?
Yeah, what's up?
So, as being the old school practitioner of the godly arts that he is. Where do you see him going with all this? Obviously, you've gone to some lengths to explain that he sees all of this power as his, right? He is the rightful inheritor of divinity in Cairne, at least more so than all these chumps.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out. But that's kind of his mindset. Like, he was already heir to one god's throne, and then putting the dwarven chains of fate on made him heir to a second god's throne. And then seeing his, like, the news article, like the statue replaying his goddess wife's death, he's ready to drop the demi. and because he has to. Like, he sees it as his responsibility now to step into that power vacuum and play the role because they're not able.
Does
Like,
he
because
know?
nobody else can.
Does Az the character actually know how to seize the mantle of divinity in Cairne?
I don't know.
It seems
mean,
like a tricky thing to do.
It seems like a very tricky thing to do. So I guess we'll find out.
I will be curious to see what route that takes myself, truth be told. Yeah, there's, like I said, I keep saying it, and I know, like, it won't really make sense until it happens, but things are about to get really interesting. I'm really excited, to be honest, because I know at this point, like, everyone's kind of got a lot of their own purposes and agendas of this and that and the other, depending on who they are and their backstories, and even how they've evolved as people over the course of the story. Some of you have evolved like a tremendous amount from who you started as. I think the two greatest changes I've seen, and it's just me personally, has been probably Genesis and Uki. They've both had to really clamp down and, like, realize that the world is not what they thought it was, and they've had to put themselves out into places they're not comfortable being, and deal with things from their pasts that they're not comfortable dealing with. And they've dealt with that very much. And of course, I mean, every character has their evolution, but these are, like, the two most diverse changes, I think, that I've seen. Whereas we've seen Saoirse grow stronger and more confident just steadily as she goes, and Listener becoming more soured and independent. And soured because he was innocent. He wasn't innocent when this started. You know, he was part of a hive mind and protected within that. And, you know, God, that's huge, getting cut off from the entire consciousness you've ever known and thrust out into this cold, unforgiving world to make your own path, where that was never even something that you culturally would have considered before. Mm-hmm. And then go ahead,
I think so I think no, I appreciate you recognizing it, because I feel like it's interesting that you talk about you're saying Saoirse being stronger, right? And yet Uki, who has always had this physical strength and this military strength, I think has shown to be vulnerable. And that comes from the trust and the support of, of this party. Mm-hmm. And that she's learned a lot of that trust and openness and vulnerability that she's not felt since Chilele and the brother, and that. And so that trust, that kind of trust and letting those walls down. It's not something that is, for one thing, it's not something that we're really genetically, meant to be.
Yeah.
Obviously, having, coming from Stonebridge, having family, having that sense of loyalty and such is something that is of that kind of nature versus nurture thing, right? So she recognizes that. But I definitely feel like the complexity, the growth, and the vulnerability, and even to allow herself to have those moments to literally just break down. Because there was that, how many times have we had these false spirits come to us and claim they're our loved ones, and then it turns out they aren't, they're false. And then finally, when we do, when we're in that moment, and there are the loved ones, and just she almost missed out on that opportunity because she still has that fear.
Yeah, the mistrust.
Yeah, and that was just like a really cathartic moment. And I think about, like, how many years I've been playing with y'all now, and the number of times that I literally sit here and just start crying. I will be crying as I'm going through these moments, because it's like, this catharsis for myself as a player, and being and having a character that is allowing herself to just open up and to put herself out. And I think honestly, I think it's a reflection of it's with the party, but it's a reflection of this group of people who've come together to play this complex, amazing world of Cairne that you've put together, Church.
There is a lot of, I think, player level vulnerabilities that open up that I do see too, like you're talking about. And I have my own moments, I won't lie. Usually mine are going through NPCs, but there are moments where I think we all kind of get caught up, and it's good. It's good because, we tabletop players too often forget it is a role-playing game, and we are telling a story, and those stories should be personal and emotionally driven. Like, it's that old joke about why do adventurers always have these dark, tragic backstories? It's because Fred, that's happily married with 2 kids and a good job, isn't going adventuring. Hey, we're gonna go risk life and limb to dive into this dungeon and get some gold. Yeah, I'm gonna stay home and watch TV with the wife later.
I've got bread. I've got beer.
Yeah.
I make shoes for a living.
Well, and so much for me is that, in my real life, I find myself like caring so much for others and for my community, and that's why in playing in role in Globes, like, I don't want to be a healer. I'm tired of having to take care of anyone else. I want to be able to, in a way, yes, I'm still being a protector, but it's a very different thing because, I think it takes a lot to, that's what I love about role playing, is the fact that you can really explore, these alternate, I want to say alter egos. At the same time, it allows us to really find more depth as players.
Yeah.
And to truly be what role playing is, and that is, it can be both an escape, but it's also an outlet for our creativity.
Yeah. Cathartic. Like you said. Which is great. And it is great. I know I can be, for lack of a better word, cruel sometimes.
I find you're more cruel as a player when I'm with you in other games. If anybody thinks you're cute, that you're cruel as a GM, it's like, try bringing in a party and try being with him. You're lucky to get out alive.
Yeah,
Depends on the character he's playing.
It's true because I do have my really good guy characters as well. But yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I can be a little turd. But it's the forever DM thing. Like, I'm acting out because I'm like, ooh, I get to play, But yeah, I know sometimes I'm really mean. Not in a like cruel way. Like, I'm not intentionally ever trying to hurt anybody because we're all having fun. But I will, like, if you give me a backstory, you could pretty much rest assured at some point it's gonna come up somewhere. But
Sadly.
yeah, some more than others. But no, I mean, I like that though. You guys take the time to write them. I want you to feel like they're appreciated and an integral part of who your character is, rather than just fluff in the background that you and maybe a couple other people might ever see. You know, it should be an integral part of who you are. It's kind of like how every single Batman movie ever made is telling his origin story over and over again. Like, we don't want to do that, obviously, because it gets a little old, but at the same time, that's who made him what he is, right? And the same, your pasts make you who you are, as characters, you know. And they come into play very strong in this, and I think because we put such a huge focus on culture within the world, and not just the cultures that I've written, but the cultures that you yourselves have helped develop and flesh out by playing and expanding the ideals and really focusing in on the minutiae that a generalized writer such as myself might miss over. Because when I, you know, as you know, when I first wrote all this stuff out, it was, I mean, it was there, but at the same time, it was not nearly as fleshed out as what it is today, thanks to the input that you guys have brought forward.
I like how unique, though, our game is in regards to that, you know, I have to find that, oh, we forget. It's not that sort of formulaic type thing, right? So I think often we forget to loot. You know, like we literally forget to loot. And you know, we've got a bard that's not a typical, you know, that kind of stereotypical type thing, and that's what I just love about this, is just how unique what everybody brings to their character.
Yeah, because Saoirse's a very, like, quiet, shy, naive, like, ooh kind of character, and she's like the bard in Cairne, or, like, you know, Cairne's equivalent anyways.
Yeah, and that's I wanted to break tradition and stereotype as much as I could with Cairne, and you guys have helped that a lot, and more so now. Like, I'm sorry, what were you about to say there, Master Miss? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna say that the highlight for me is not the I have character progression highlights, but I think the thing that's been more key for me in terms of my player development has been transitioning from the idea that certain roles have certain tasks to do, and that's it, to a more fluid perspective in a lot of ways, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
In terms of the system that we're moving into, it's more organic, and you have the choice to try to do anything.
Yeah, I love watching you guys begin to embrace that idea too, with your characters, and just open up and start getting really creative. Because the problems I throw at you guys, as you know, they're often complex or very challenging, and you guys again and again never fail to amaze me in your abilities to flip the script on me and think your way out of a problem. Sometimes you got to fight your way through, obviously. I mean, it's it's gonna happen, but that's not what you guys are, especially in Cairne. It's not what you guys are focused on. It's not about fighting your way through the enemy. It's about thinking your way around them or over them, even, you know.
Gosh, if it was just about fighting your way through, it'd be so much easier for me.
It would probably have been a much shorter game.
I have to say my favorite moments are when Az isn't fighting, like with the glaive in the last session, and crafting that was like a non-combat challenge that you really like rose to the occasion and created something amazing on.
Yeah.
I thought that was really fun.
Yeah,
that and the classes, like the voices in your head classes, that was it served no narrative purpose, no like mechanical advantage, but it warmed my heart.
It was great flavor.
Well, I will say that, like with Uki, you know, she's she's like a ride or die when it comes to Wilhelm, when it came to Kaz, you know, a respect she has. You know, I mean, it's always a given as far as her relationships with everyone. But with Az, Oh, heck no. She's like, that he is so chaotic. He is such a loose pistol that if because it's like, no, no. We made that decision. I'll do what I can, you know,
Well,
because sometimes, you know, and the last time when we had to deal with this, it is because it was the assessment of what our entire party was like. It's like, could we take them? Yeah. Are we going to wind up losing members of our party? Yeah, we're not going, you know, we're going to live to die another day.
yeah. And I have to, honestly, I have to give Ginkgo, like, a lot of credit. Like, the Galdawina are... It's difficult to get your head around being, basically, like, a high-functioning psychotic or even schizophrenic, because, you know, they all have that disability, you know, genetically wired into them, spiritually wired into them, because of the tree. And as is like a unique piece of lore that I never fully expected, because he predates a lot of that and missed a lot of that. And it's, you know, a lot of people will push against a tabula rasa type character, you know, if you know what I mean by tabula rasa. And Az has actually taken that concept of, you know, this is all I knew of the old world. I have no idea what's happened since then. I got locked up. And he's been slowly figuring it out and slowly learning and slowly coming to terms and dealing with the shock and horror of everything that's going on, everything that has gone on in the last 200 years, unbeknownst to him, which includes nearly the wiping out of everything he knows and loves and dedicated his whole life to, on top of dealing with the fact that his sanity has just been slowly getting cracked more and more and more, slowly but surely. And it's been a very subtle, slow-moving process. When he first came in, he was gung-ho, he was on board, he was focused, he was a disciplined warrior. And now he's like, what are you guys doing? Oh, no, I'm gonna go pick at this hole in the wall over here. Call me if you need anything. Which is great, because it has been a very subtle and very gradual evolution as he's slipped away from that highly disciplined, well-trained, you know, super warrior that he was, into this kind of broken, confused individual that he is now, with maybe even a slight bit of megalomania, although is it megalomania if he could possibly achieve it, you know?
Hey.
It ceases being megalomania at the moment of apotheosis, when he ascends to godhood. Then it doesn't count anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, I took careful notes on that progression and tried to echo it with the portrayal of the illness. So like, that's where I got my notes from.
Which you did great. You did great. I was so glad to be able to finally infect one of you guys with some horrible disease.
Yeah, we
Which,
can tell.
once again, that makes me sound like I'm just an evil, mean person. I should point out once again to those of you at home, and you guys probably too, that we are playtesting a new world. So this is an excuse to try out some mechanics and see how they work.
Such as horrible, debilitating illnesses.
Yes. Well, you know, illnesses are a long, long time ago, and I have to give credit where it's due. A long, long time ago, God, probably late 80s, early 90s. That's how far back I'm going here. I had the joy and pleasure of being involved in a first edition D&D homebrew campaign that was run by 4 doctors, each in a different corner of the United States. And they had a huge map of their world that would take up like an entire floor of a kitchen. And each person, each of the 4 people was developing the world as they played out into it, with an individual party going out. And all 4 of these guys were doctors. And I remember they invented a whole plethora of diseases and conditions for their world. and they were terrifying. And I remembered the impact it had on me as a player and others, and I really wanted to take that ideal and bring it forward and say, okay, this is a very real thing, because clerical magic is not here. You can't just snap your fingers and be, oh, cure disease, you're fine. No. You better go find some penicillin. But it makes it scarier, and it makes it a whole nother dynamic of potential problems, and one more thing to worry about, and something that I think gives the benevolence even more purpose. Which, God, Wilhelm has proven time and time again. He's been an absolute trooper. Keeping up with you guys. Good old Wilhelm.
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
Though,
And we've learned a lot too, I think.
I do think now, obviously things are going to change with the new rule sets and stuff, but some way of dealing with magical illnesses, I feel like would not be misplaced.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the medical system's something I definitely want to revamp very hard, to make less difficult to manage, I should say. I love the idea that you can be creative with it, and you can specialize in this and that, and you can focus on this and that, and approach it from different angles. But as it is right now, it's a lot of responsibility on you, on the benevolent. I like the idea of medical roleplay. Actually role-playing out a healing session and what you want to do to heal and how you tend to a wound. And I think it adds a new dynamic, because it can be a group-oriented roleplay of, you're benevolent and the patient and the people worrying about them and trying to help them. And it opens up like a whole mini game, if you will, like a mini RP game within the game. I think it can, I should say, if done right. So that's definitely something I want to revamp and push to make more entertaining and involved, and less, like I said, complicated. Which I think we're starting to get a little bit of a rhythm, at least. Like Wilhelm knows, you know how to do what you're doing now very well. You're like, okay, I need to go this, I need to do that, and this is what I need, this is how I'm going to get it, this is how I'm going to put it together, and boom. Yeah, Wilhelm's been very good about stepping up to that challenge. And it's... Go ahead.
It has been... It is a lot of research.
Yeah. Well, I want to work it just the same way as I have magic, I think, in the long run. Is I want to give you the freedom to be creative in the same regard. Which I'd like to do with all the professions, including even the martial ones. Give you a chance to be creative in that same regard as the magic and psychic and spiritualist type professions. And we have a lot of professions, so I think we can open up a lot of doors even within all that. Because I know as I've been updating, as it were, that I think I've even added a couple new sub professions as I was going. Just here and there, nothing major.
Just a dozen or two.
Just a few. It hasn't been anything too bad. Trying to think what I did get. I'm actually looking through the list here. Oh,
like the xenobiologist.
I did add I did add the xenobiologist, and I added the zealot to the spiritualist.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the two big ones that I think I remember offhand. The xenobiologist, I think, could really play an important role in a party. Somebody who can actually gauge what you're coming up against. Because just as the players have that creativity with their abilities, one thing I'd like to write in as I go into the actual scripting of like a game master's guide is encouraging a game master to use that same creativity. Like, a Blightborn creature doesn't have to be one of these things in my monster manual. Like, be creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's churning out new mutant forms of life all the time. And it keeps the players guessing. Like, I don't know what this is. It's one of the reasons I'm constantly throwing new stuff at you guys. Because I want you to be like, what the hell is this? You know?
Mm-hmm.
How do I deal with this? And I think it makes those encounters more intense. Of course, you guys would have the final say in how intense it gets, obviously. But I feel like it keeps you kind of on the edge. Maybe.
No, it's a hard life out here. You're gonna feel a little bit of trepidation going into anything.
True. This is very true. But as we move into the new systems, I think we're going to have a lot of interesting new predicaments open up, and a lot of interesting new ways to deal with them. Because there's things we haven't touched on yet, like the factotum profession tree, for instance, and the ability to just literally play a mutant character with all kinds of abilities. I actually find that kind of fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the concept. Like, you're probably not going to be well liked wherever you go, but who's going to mess with you? Excuse me. I know I've come up with some more weather patterns for the world here and there. I think I've only added one so far to the weather almanac. Yeah. That's right, yeah. The eclipsing shadows phenomenon.
Oh no.
It's fine, it's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about at all, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the world is getting more and more fleshed out. I've still got the new additions to come to the timeline once we're ready with the train lines and the ocean line, and you know, the integration of the Saimo and the Bone Dancers into the world a little more fully, which I'm looking forward to. They're both, for me, they were fascinating things to write. I love them both a great deal, and the dichotomy between the two. You know, the Sahihimu's kind of pure and innocent nature mingled with the Silundaya former elven, you know, spacefaring race of people that have just degenerated into these logic-driven, emotionless, half-machine creatures who've completely lost who they were. I really like the concept. I hope somebody plays one.
It's gonna be a strange character.
Yeah. But I think it could be an interesting one. I think it would be myself, but you know, I play a lot of weird characters, so
Yeah, it's one of those that's going to require very strong commitment to a completely foreign ideology.
yeah. Well, it's like
stuff in Cairne like that.
You've done that really well with Listener.
I tried. The thing about Listener is he was influenceable. You know, he has become more like the companions he has surrounded himself with over time. He's developed individuality.
Yeah, but he had to go through something really horrible to get there.
Yes, it was as a result of loss, but that's kind of fine. I don't know how much a Solendaya elf would do that, though, because they weren't isolated. They chose this.
Yeah, more or less. They chose it not realizing the price.
Yeah.
So
the character arcs available to a player character Soul and Dire are a fascinating question.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really love about them is, as cold and unfeeling as they are, they're painfully aware that they themselves are a finite resource. Like their lives, their population, the remaining members of who they are is a finite resource, which means they have to coexist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like that concept. I like because it's not even grudging, it's just survival. This is the logistical path I have to take to survive. How can I appeal to these organics, as IG might put it?
Meat detected?
Exactly. IG'd be right at home.
Just walking through the streets of our moon, pointing, meat.
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 Look at all the meat.
Meat.
So, I am curious. Out of all the places that you guys have been so far, and you can go back as far as you want even, but I'm thinking recently. Has there been any place that you really were curious about or fascinated by, that wanted to go back maybe at some other time and explore deeper or something?
I wish we could go back to the library in a session or 3 where we had our player character who speaks Dwarven present. I feel like that was such a missed opportunity that it was like 3 or 4 sessions in a row without Uki in the library at the place where we need Uki the most.
Yeah.
Because
I tried.
You did
no,
great.
no, I know. It's just, it feels like such a missed opportunity for Uki to have had her own hero moment. You can read this ancient language, that's better than any of us can do right now.
Yeah, that's true. And luckily she was there though, so she did kind of, in an offhand way, still get to assist, which was good.
Yeah,
I think
it's more fun when the actual player is there to play their character.
Oh, I agree
and
entirely.
Enjoy it.
I agree entirely. And ironically, the archivist, what was it, Aurel? I don't know if you could tell, but I was really getting into playing her as a character, as an NPC. I think I've told you guys this before, but every NPC you meet, I actually have a stupid long backstory for, because I'm a huge nerd. And I try to use that to do my best to make them individual encounters, unique encounters, each one. Hey, London. I hope it comes across. I do try to. I probably put more time into the villains than the good guys, but I mean, how many good guys do you meet, really?
In Cairne? Not many.
Do they have to survive the encounter?
Hey, Maury was good to you.
Yeah. Does it count if you're already dead?
Honestly, I can think of a lot of people that were good to us.
Yeah, I mean, the butcher turned out to be something you never expected.
Yeah.
Which I was thrilled when we got to that turnaround, and
But even more than that, they're like the benevolence in our moon, or not our moon, abattoir.
Yeah.
They were good.
Let's see, who else? There was the Voivanian who took us in when we were, still exploring Underhome, allowed us to stay at his house for a night.
Yeah. You guys were so suspicious too. Just waiting on the other shoe to drop.
I swear there was something out there that we would have probably taken offense to, but we just stayed in all night.
You did the smart thing. It's like, no, I'm good. We're just hang out here.
I'll take your word for it. Thanks for the dinner.
the church grim was a certified good boy.
Yeah, I was glad you guys got to meet a church grim. I really enjoy it. I love the concept of the church grim, and they have to be in my game. You know.
Same.
They're such a great creature. I don't know, there have been some good guys here and there. And some neutral ones, I'll say, even too. Ones that just didn't mess with you. I think I think a lot of what you guys run into, and I think it's the nature of the world, is you run into victims who have decided the only way that they can survive is by getting one up on someone else. Like, they're not necessarily evil, they're just fighting to survive, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I think you probably run into that a lot too. But once again, that's that nature of the world thing. And I do want this to be even though there's lots of other species, I still want this to be a quote-unquote human drama in its own way. I've always felt that tabletop role-playing is an exploration of the human condition, the emotional condition, and intellectual condition of people. Because this allows you to kind of waltz into a horrible situation and see how you might react. Not necessarily you, the person, but given a chance to look at it at a distance. How would you deal with this? How do you deal with these people? How do you deal with these situations? And I think it's healthy in that regard. Being able to overcome tremendous obstacles at a safe distance and gain confidence from it. Unless you're a game master, and then you're just constantly getting beat down by your players.
An exercise in ego control.
Yeah. I lose constantly. Like, yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to be a game master, just be ready. Like, you never win. You're not.
And if you do,
to.
everybody's so upset about it.
Yeah, you're not supposed to win. If you win, like, you pat yourself on the back all day. Everyone's going to hate you for it. Man, that guy sucks. He wiped our party like 3 times. I'm not playing with him anymore. Unless you go into it and it's a meat grinder from the get-go, and you know it's going to be a meat grinder. That's a whole different thing. We've had remarkably few actual deaths, though. Speaking of, we've come really close recently a few times.
Yeah.
Wilhelm and I just leaning on each other in the back.
Yeah.
So far, though, it was still only Evelyn, and then you were controlling Evelyn's character.
Yeah. Although to be fair, that was the dice. I had no intention of actually killing her.
Right.
Sadly, I liked that character a lot. But be nice to get that player back again too. She was a lot of fun.
Yes.
One day. We'll see. One day we'll get a reunion of everyone, which I don't know if Discord could handle that many people. We've had a lot of players come through our table here over the years. Some come and go. We had really bad luck with Volrestad.
That's why I intend on playing one our next campaign.
We had really bad luck with them.
And I'm taking the reins of, like, fleshing out their culture.
Yeah, we had bad luck with them, but I still really like them. How many in the ballpark? Gosh.
Like 11, 12 maybe, because it's like there's all of us, like all 6 of us that's sitting right here. Then we've had Chris.
Chris has had what? 3 characters?
Yeah. We had Chris, we had Shun, we had Simon. We had Redbird. We had Poison,
We had Almond and Chance.
Almond, and yeah. So that's another 6 just right there.
So 12 total
Yeah,
so
I think
far.
about 12. Yeah. Oh, and Evelyn's player. That's 13.
Yeah.
So
13.
yeah, 13.
We gotta rope somebody else in. This is an inauspicious number.
13. I think out of all of those 13, but 2 of them are unknown, right? As far as who survived,
Yeah.
2 of them are unknown. I think it was Adets and the other Volrestad Ranger.
Drago.
Drago, yeah.
Oh, Maeve.
And Maeve.
Not Maeve.
That's 14.
14.
Yeah, Maeve. So those 3 are more than likely still alive. I think the rest might be dead.
Like, you think Chris's 3-year-old dead?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good point.
And Simon's Volrestad.
Yeah. Simon's Volrestad.
Bellathier.
He went home.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think more of them went home than not. Like, the only, like, ones that are confirmed dead are Shillelagh,
yeah.
Evelyn, and,
Kaz, most likely.
well, Kaz is an unknown.
Yeah.
I was
That's
about
why I
to
say
say,
most likely.
Yeah, Chance's character.
Chance's
Sognak.
character is definitely. Sognak is
Sognak,
definitely dead.
yeah.
He died in front
Songnat,
of me.
Shillelagh, and Evelyn are the only 3, like, confirmed dead.
Oh, and Shun's character,
Oh, yeah.
the other Volrestad. So that's, what, 5 confirmed
Yeah, I forgot that
deaths.
Drago was like, yeah, I killed him.
Yeah.
4 confirmed.
Yeah, 4 confirmed.
Maybe
Well,
5.
Jeff. We'll count Jeff. Jeff was confirmed. Poor Jeff. He didn't deserve that.
Jeff was a mount for anyone watching.
Yeah, Jeff. Jeff was a seriously overpowered mount too.
Yeah, that thing was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I regretted that one after a while. It's like, Jesus, put that thing away.
I gave him a what aura?
What was I
No,
thinking?
he was great.
What was I thinking? Oh, yeah. And then, what'd you guys think about the Splinter of Divinity, the last one? Shaw's Splinter.
I really enjoyed that sequence.
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Yeah, that was fun. And I enjoyed, like, the whole, sequence leading up to it where we were, you know, fighting some big fight, you know, thinking that, you know, we were, you know, battling Shar, like, you know, what have you, and then all of a sudden here comes Phaedra and Erebus. And it's like, hey, we stopped all this for you, now do you want to make a deal, lads?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They haven't forgotten Az either.
Good. Good.
You've had bad luck with those rolls. You have caught the attention of, I think, 3 of the powers that be.
Sanguining Puck, Angler, and, yeah, Erebus and Phaedra.
Yeah, and, well, the Orphan knows who he is, too.
And the orphans of 4.
Although the Orphan's a little touch and go. You never know with her.
Well, you know, we'll see.
Nothing to worry about there.
We'll see.
Which I actually have...
It's actually 5.
Is there a 5th one? Jeez.
There's a 5th one. So, yeah.
Eventually they're just going to all converge on you.
Yeah. That'll be fun. That'll be a real fun moment.
Can steal all the power at once.
Exactly. I'll just make it more easy. More convenient. I've gathered you all in one place today. To
I've
deliver
gathered
a
you all here on the mother's head.
Oh, Lord.
Oh man, when Az meets the Angler. That's gonna be real something right there.
Yeah. The Angler's going to be like, toodaloo, and hop on Draken's back and ride off into the sunset.
None of you are
Toodaloo.
my problem anymore.
Toodaloo, homie. Oh yeah.
We'll catch you at the quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
The Pact Lords Cold War. They hold a quarterly round table meeting.
Yeah.
They're all at like a power parity, so it's just like an infinite stalemate.
The question remains as to what on earth's going on with the Cairn side of the Angler. It's like, are these separate aspects of what was the same creature that has been divided in some way? Can he just freely travel back and forth, and he's actually conned us into bringing the pile of souls here? He didn't need any help getting in. Some mysterious third thing. Did he bring these all here to bargain with the Solanaya elves for some bullshit?
I love the Angler as a villain. He's so horrible. Like, and I love how much you guys hate him. Like, every time he pops up, I can just feel you seething with, like, oh, it's this
He's
guy.
so oily.
You read me right.
He's so oily.
That's one of the things I love about him as a villain, though, because, like, you just can't get rid of him, you can't shake him. He's still managing to get one over on you. He's like that guy that just kind of hangs in the background until somebody beats you near death and looks up and be like, hey, need a hand?
I mean, you sets a lot of that up.
It's great. I love it.
The evil Samaritan.
The evil Samaritan. That is a right proper term for him. Although, he's never actually hurt you, has he? Well, I mean,
exactly. That's why I said that specifically. He just lets you get hurt.
Yeah.
I mean,
Actually, he has hurt Draken.
Well, yeah, but you guys
he
are
did stop his heart.
You guys are kind of in a relationship at this point.
We got this whole thing going on.
the Angler was content to let Bryn die.
Yes. Yeah,
And
he will
try to convince Draken to let that happen.
He's not going to kill you, but he won't necessarily interject if somebody else does.
I mean, he threatened to kill us whenever that initial deal was made.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret about the Angler, if you want. You ready?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The Angler is a liar.
Known.
Yeah, no kidding!
Known facts.
Hey, Another World. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, he is a liar, and I think it took you guys a little while to realize that too, because there was a couple times you're like, wait, but you said blah blah blah, and I'm like, liar.
Got he.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure that, like, I said it, you denied it in chat, but then like said that I am like, good at figuring things out at our last round table. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty damn sure still that the whole bit with Shepard Scratch was just like Angler shapeshifted his voice and like, to get the heat off of him, basically, making us think that Scratch was the one who set off the reactor, but no, it was actually him, and he was trying to like weasel us into another deal like he did with many of the party members in the Shadowfell Echo of Cairne.
I think it's great. Like, I have PTSD'd you guys so bad that you're paranoid constantly.
I'm just. It was convenient that he blew up the reactor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked out.
If he didn't do it, that's what Rat was on the way to do.
It's like that old joke, did you die?
I mean,
yes. I got better.
Yeah, it's there's more Angler shenanigans in the future.
Oh, undoubtedly.
That was fun.
Oh yeah. I've got some lovely cash and prizes in store for you guys.
Az can take them. Az got this.
The real question is, what are you guys gonna do when you meet your other selves?
Let's consult with the expert. Master Miss, do you recommend we all play 2 to 3 characters at once?
First of all, no, I don't. Second of all, this is being built up to be some sort of, oh, what are we gonna do? I'm taking the opposite approach. Two people meeting each other is not something that needs to be dramatized. It will create its own drama in and of itself. It doesn't need to be assisted. My characters are their own separate people, so of course they have their opinions about each other. I don't need to write that. That just happens.
I'm probably gonna egg that on a little too.
So it shall be egged, but I mean,
I am
I'm not
the
stressing
Eggman.
about it, you know.
I am the Eggman.
Goo goo gajoo.
Goo goo gajoo.
It's always recommended to be capable of looking at a situation from different perspectives anyway. So
Well,
perhaps this could be
to be fair, and luckily, intentionally, I shouldn't say luckily, intentionally, I have let you guys get a peek at one another. So it's not like who the heck is this guy? Like you've seen passing glances kind of at this point, you know what I mean?
Saoirse and Bryn have met.
Exactly. So I mean, it's not a complete stranger to stranger, head to head. Obviously, like, some mistrust would be understood, but I think both sides of the equation are very much aware that there's something going on that conjoins them in some way.
Yeah, I think Bryn is more curious about Saoirse than anything. Saoirse, of course, is just going to throw her arms around Bryn and be like, "Oh, it's the person who saved me," and then Bryn will just be like,
Ew,
"Oh,
gross.
whoa, this person's like, actually likes me immediately. Like, okay, like now I've got a new small person to protect."
Yeah. Ooh, gross. Physical contact. Stop it.
No, like, she'll, like, secret about Bryn, she is, like, touch-starved. No, she'll accept it, and, like, she'll be, I think Bryn will end up being very protective of Saoirse.
Right on.
Honestly.
Well, there's going to be some interesting things occurring leading up to the meeting. I do have some plans and plans within plans.
I hope you got some plans. I'm mildly concerned about the logistics of any sessions where there are, what's our grand total? 10? 11? How many characters would there be in a session if all of our player characters were in there together?
Is it 10 or 11, yeah?
Yeah. That worries me somewhat. Doing literally anything that requires an initiative order would kill us dead on the spot.
Well, combat's going to be a little bit less.
Yeah.
And the combat that there is will be a lot more serious.
Mhm.
I should actually warn you, like, going forward, like, combat is not going to be easy, or it's not going to be like oh, look, there's an orc. Carry on, my friend, you know? It's going to be, do we want to risk this?
How much fun do you want to have?
Yeah. Because the numbers could dwindle. The numbers could dwindle based upon your reactions to certain things in the future. And not just by death, too. I want to point that out, too. There's going to be other things that could potentially happen. You're in a very weird place right now, as you've noticed. You've probably noticed. When you try to cast spells, like, you're in a weird place.
Yeah, when are we gonna figure out, like, or attune ourselves to, like, Cairne's, like, magic layer? Because
Well,
it's getting a little annoying, I'm not gonna lie.
that depends on you guys.
I mean, I've got some, like, ideas of how Bryn could possibly figure it out if you want me to run those by you, because I'm like really tired of my spells being left up to random chance now.
Well, we'll save it for when we're in game. We'll see what you can figure out. It's not anything that's gonna mess you up for like eternally or anything.
Okay, as long as we've got like a plan to like, you know, be able to cast normally back, because like I don't know, it's, for me at least, it's not like as fun anymore. The novelty's kind of worn off, but that's me.
Yeah,
everyone else could feel differently.
It's all good. You'll get it either way. Like I said, it's not permanent. Well, I mean, unless things go really horrible.
We broke magic again.
Broke magic forever.
Second time.
Master Mist.
Draken, what have you done?
Does that fix it?
Master Mist did it on purpose.
All magic is now routed through Draken.
Oh,
he
Lord.
is the only remaining source of the weave.
Oh shit.
And you wondered why I was acting wonky.
Did I hear Draken, God of Magic?
Draken, God of Magic.
Oh.
I keep casting Misty Step, and it's like I set off like a party cracker every time there's a little explosion of confetti and glitter.
At least not all the side effects have been bad.
It's been pretty funny sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, as annoyed as I was of like not being able to Misty Step away from the nightmare, I did appreciate the fact that the effect that Bryn ended up getting was, you know, her like, you know, adopting a ghost form.
Yeah, they're not all terrible, and I didn't want to once again I didn't want to punish you. You know, there's good and bad and silly, and there's even some like permanent buff type things that can happen if you get the right roll. So it's not all bad.
Like the doubling of the Fateful Hound spell.
Yeah.
Which is up for the next 8 hours.
Yeah, that's a nice little buff.
Yeah.
Got 2 dogs.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah, it circles back to the thing that we talked about when we were in the Forge. You know, just because your life is fleeting doesn't mean that it can't have purpose. You know, things that set you back don't necessarily handicap you. You know,
Solid.
it's important to be able to understand as a player and as a person in life that when you're set back by things, that's not necessarily something you have to be irritated about and try to get over because you're damaged. That's not how that works. You know, so maybe a shift in perspective would be more helpful than a patch or a repair in that situation.
You know, like I see where you're coming from, but like, I don't know. I guess for me, it's just kind of like, you know, we're also kind of here to have fun and like, you know, tell a story, and it's just kind of like, I don't know, especially with D&D, you know, there's the expectation that your characters can do, like, you know, certain things, and it's like, yeah, you're, like, you know, gonna get setbacks, like, you're gonna face challenges, it's like, it happens, but, I don't know, there's a, like, you know, balance point, you know, where it's just kind of, like, between, like, yeah, like, this is a challenge, and, like, you know, but, you know, it's still fun, versus, like, okay, this is, like, no longer fun anymore, like, you know, it's a thing, but it's like, you know, we're still playing a game effectively.
Oh, yeah. Well, never forget that the only way to make Superman interesting was to take his powers away.
Oh, yeah.
And by doing so, they forced him to rely on who he was rather than what he was to overcome the obstacles. And
As a lifetime defender of the All-Star Superman comics, I must disagree with you, but only on principle. Your general statement is fine.
Yes. Well, I'm talking about the movies, to be fair.
Yeah.
I know the comics get really wild and crazy. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. Like, right now, for instance, with the challenge of your magic not working like it's supposed to, this is where you guys, and I know you weren't all part of it, but this is where you guys fall back on the detectives you used to be. You're uncovering a mystery, so to speak. You're not fighting your way through it. Right now, there's not a lot of threats that are going to be in front of you either. Physical threats, unless you cause them.
Well, sort of the bad thing is that Bryn's detective skills come from her magic.
Well, but at the same time, like, how old is Bryn?
38.
So she's been alive for 38 years in the most incredible city in the multiverse.
Well,
She's-
30 years for 30 years in Sigil, like born in the Feywild, and then like
Well, that's what I'm
the-
saying though. Is she's got the
She been
experience. She got the
True.
experience, the know-how, the intelligence, and the charisma to navigate these waters.
got that riz.
Yeah, and that's the thing is right now, don't rely on your abilities. Rely on who you are right now until you get
yeah.
through this. It's not going to last forever. Like I said, I'm not going to do that to you, and it'll get back to the exciting pew pew magic that you're used to.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
and
maybe
it's
even
fine.
more
it's
so.
Just, yeah, it's purely like combat scenarios when we get into them.
What's going to
That's
be funny
great.
is you're going to start coming into a situation where both your groups are going to start finding information that's key to the overall plot line.
Yes.
So, and like when I say like for you guys to kind of fall back on your old detective line of work, like that will benefit you greatly going ahead because there's some neat stuff coming up. Some stuff that I think will be fun for you guys to explore. And I'm going to stop beating you down quite so hard and often because you guys have been in a lot of combat lately.
We really have.
And
I'm ready for a breather.
Well,
To
that's-
get
that's-
back to the more narrative stuff.
That's what this is going to be. This is going to be a hard narrative. Pretty
Yay.
much. There will obviously be some combat here and there, depending on you guys, mostly.
Yeah, because Bryn's strength really isn't in combat. Like, it's more social stuff. So I'm much ready to get back. I'm very ready to get back to that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're headed. So this is your time to shine. Yeah.
Would now be a good opportunity to segue into a brief discussion of the Cairne system proposals.
I'm game if you guys are. Everybody cool with that?
How's everybody feel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
So,
do this.
I wanted to make a PowerPoint and have like a explanation of every single thing. I made about half of it and it caused me severe depression.
Oh no, that's not good.
So, instead of doing that, and because we have a tendency to discuss things for a tremendous amount of time, and the level of detail required by that was not going to allow us to finish it even by midnight, and I have very little chance of staying awake that long today. Here's my proposed agenda. Here's the agenda I have out for the day.
Okay.
We will first discuss the design pillars of Cairne. And I think this is a good opportunity to hash out some philosophical ideas about what should the game system enable, what feeling of gameplay is it supposed to produce, and are we in agreement on all of these things?
Fair.
I started with some, mostly derived from things that Church had said in the run-up to it, but also from my own opinions about how Cairne works. It's best for us to discuss those up front, you know? Then I'm going to launch into the two topics that are probably most important to me in the playtest rules. Did anybody read the playtest rules, by the way?
Yes.
All right, two. Good, I'll take it. The two things that are most important to me in there, and hopefully we can make some progress on that. And then after that, we should do a little bit of project management and start dividing up tasks if you guys indeed want to be in here actively developing portions of the rule set.
Yeah.
Does the agenda sound good to everybody, or does anybody want to introduce additional items?
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that if you guys are. We can go from there.
Yeah, and again, you know, been asking since last year. Yeah, glad to be
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, let's start with the design pillars then.
design
I-
pillars. Yep.
I also want to note 3. I also read the rules as well.
Hey, that's my boy.
There we go.
Sorry,
That's my
just
boy.
the sleepover has moved down here for.
Yeah, we heard.
You're good, man.
Yeah.
It's all good.
We heard you have our sympathies.
All right. So
All right, so
we have our design pillars.
first and most critical, threats are deadly, and you must play to control them. This is my broadening of your initial desire that combat feel deadly. Your first impulse should be to avoid combat. I wanted to expand that out a little bit. A lot of stuff in Cairne is deadly. It doesn't all necessarily happen after you've rolled initiative.
Yeah.
Half the stuff that has truly threatened our lives has been completely unrelated to combat.
True.
I don't think we were even in initiative when I got my legs cut off. This disease that Genesis has picked up, this virus, not really a combat-related thing. Some of the more terrible hazards we faced weren't necessarily the result of a combat interaction.
Yeah.
But the goal is that if you are at risk, the risk is high. This is not a game of attrition. This is not, you know, you're a level 4 or 5 D&D character and you're going to take 7 or 8 hits over the course of a long combat and you'll be fine. It doesn't matter. You should be trying to avoid taking any hits, and taking any hits is a significant thing. It's going to shape your gameplay for some time afterwards.
Yeah.
Open for discussion. Church, you seem to be in agreement. How's everybody else feel?
I'd agree with that. I think the emphasis should be on trying to reduce those risks to yourself.
Mhm.
I think that emphasizing trying there is important than, or more important than just saying to eliminate the danger entirely. Because that can kind of lag the game a little bit if you're not going outside because it's dangerous out there, you know.
Yes, of course.
People can tend to get like super concerned, like things are going to happen to you. It's like Cthulhu-esque type of mentality, you know, things are going to happen to you eventually. Like you can't prevent all danger, but yeah.
You're not safe inside either. So.
Somebody could sneeze on you, am I right?
Exactly.
Yes, you're gonna get sneezed on. This is actually good. This leads into a topic I wanted to discuss following from this first pillar. It's that playing the game at all and really pushing this first design idea are fundamentally opposed. The harder you push this idea that everything is deadly, the more and more you have backed the players into a corner and you've encouraged a style of play that is incredibly boring to everyone.
Okay.
So, my proposal for handling that in the game design, and we've implemented this in some places, others it's an open question of how to pull it off, and it's more about how do you GM the game.
Okay.
I would say that the consequences of your failure should be immediate and clear. The unknown consequences, the unknowable risks, those are the ones that slow down gameplay the most. The idea that literally every tile could be trapped, literally every box could be a mimic, literally every slightly nasty environment could be teeming with disease,
Yeah.
slows the game down tremendously if you if you've succeeded at the first design pillar, if your players are constantly alive to the threat of their environment.
Yeah.
I don't think you take the threat away. I think you allow the players to understand it. Not the characters, the players.
Yeah, which
The characters may understand it,
which
but the players need to.
I think and it's been 4 years, but if I remember correctly, I think I was very big on impressing that on you guys in the very beginning when we started this. When we started the post-apocalyptic Cairne.
Yeah.
That this is deadly. Like, combat will kill you, damage does not heal quickly, sickness and disease are very real dangers. You could get infected from a cut and die. And setting expectations is huge. That's something that should be written into both player and GM guides.
Yes.
Yeah.
As players.
Yeah.
No.
So I think if you communicate to the players, if you communicate to us in this campaign we're playing now, the scale of the risk of a thing, we don't hesitate in taking it or not.
Yeah.
We might deliberate to get on the same page amongst the group, but we don't sit there and waffle forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's unknown and we have to do a bunch of labor to even evaluate it, we'll do the labor because we play cautiously.
Yeah. And I would like to point out that this did come about because of the recent debacle with Genesis, and this is like nothing like on her part at all because she played it fantastically, but we also spent like 2/3 of an entire session trying to figure out what was up with her, and the idea is to, like, you know, of knowable risks, say, like, you know, you only get infected, say, like, you know, if your character has a cut and you make the choice to walk through a swampy area sort of deal. So it's not like...
But those risks are published.
Yeah, they're omnipresent.
Yeah, those are known risks. I even have percentages for most of them. Like, you have this much of a percentage chance of getting this disease in this situation.
I mean...
If that's what you're talking about.
No, not that it's written down someplace, but more that in the moment, in the gameplay, right? And the way I would have... The thing that I thought might have come out of that situation that would help us in the design is that if we attempt to evaluate it and the attempt fails, the attempt just fails.
I see what you're saying. Less waffling, basically.
Less waffling everywhere, really. Like, you know, we had an idea. We Wilhelm made a medical evaluation, right? And I think you'll probably remember, Jay. How many medical checks do you think you rolled over the course of trying to diagnose Genesis?
Had to be 5 or 6 because it was. I needed to figure it out, and that alone was an issue too. Was I wasn't looking in the right areas either.
Yeah, that was the big thing. It took you guys a while to catch on that it was an infection. You were looking for psychic intrusions and magical problems and invisible spirituals. Like, you were looking everywhere but the medical. I think that's at one point like why Genesis came out and said, "You're a physician. Be a physician."
Be a doctor.
But
Literally,
doctor.
yeah, that was me as a character being attempting to convey something, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if the way I played it, and I don't know if the way I played it was not communicating. Should I be louder? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
We can hear you pretty well. I don't know about him.
I can't hear myself at all.
Jay, can you mute real quick? I'm sorry, brother.
I just don't want to yell, you know?
Sorry.
No, you're good. It's not your fault, man.
I don't know if my portrayal of that conveyed something that was magical or that came from the book, because I began playing it at that time. Like,
No, I personally, I think you did fine, but because like the behavior that Genesis was exhibiting could have come from a virus or a like spiritual source or a magical source. But I think the thing here is that I think Wilhelm made some medical checks, like just generalized medical checks, and like, you know, you as a DM like told him that, oh, Genesis seems perfectly fine, when like they were good enough medical checks where I think you could have given us like, you know, the information. Just, and this is based off of my like metagame knowledge of what's happening, so I'm sorry, but I'll try to like keep it on the DL. You could have like, you know, mentioned that, hey, Genesis is not acting the way that you would expect her to, and you know that there are a few diseases or viruses in Cairne that do inflict personality changes on a person, or like, you know,
Well,
messes with their mental.
Here's the only problem with that. This disease, Genesis is patient 0.
Okay, that was about to be the caveat that I tacked on.
Yeah, Genesis is patient 0 for this particular disease. I get what you're saying, like if it's a known disease, and that's why he has the skills to determine diseases that are known, that he has studied and has experienced and has been able to research and read about. That, if it were one of those, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
It would have gone much quicker. But this, being what it is, as a brand new mutated strain of some type of brain infecting viral strain, I wanted it to be this way to a point. And granted, I know it was frustrating, but a lot of it was just, it went roundabout. Like, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. And it never got to, like, maybe it's a virus. And there were a couple points where I was like, well, like, she's, I think it was like her sinuses were inflamed. Like, I did kind of hint, like, there was something going on.
Something going on.
Yeah.
The trick here, I think, isn't that it was a novel disease and it took some evaluation. This actually segues me nicely into the second pillar of Cairne's system design. It was the fact that there was a mix of checks and actual logical thought. And it was unclear whether a check had resolved in your favor or not, and whether you simply needed a higher check or to actually think about it. This is a problem very much endemic to Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
It's
fair.
the structure of how skills work and how you're like intended to approach problems in Dungeons and Dragons is very formulaic. You're basically just supposed to describe an action that allows you to make a check that you believe you'll be able to make, and you try to make it, and it is pass or fail. That's a system design problem over there that we should try to avoid over here.
That was actually one of the reasons why I wanted a diverse skill list.
Yes.
Because the skill list in D&D is so short and so generalized that half the time you're like, well, it could be this, it could be that, you could roll this, you could roll that. One of them will work, just pick one, you know?
But even that's kind of you're lucky if it's even that, because I know there have been times where I played D&D and it's like, okay, oh yeah, so you killed the guy. Instead of it, as opposed to, you know, I've been DMs who are like, so that was critical. Tell us how you took this, how you're took him down.
Yeah.
And then that's when you get to do that. But often it's so much of that almost like, check the box. Okay, this got taken.
Yeah.
And so then it further diminishes the player's ability to role play and to really actually be part of that dialogue. And at the same time, sometimes it's, you know, I love to watch streams where I see players really just getting into it and reacting to one another, whether it's on Twitch or whether it's on the major ones that we see across Instagram and everything. So
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a caveat.
I think what we want to do is find a mid ground there. We have a more diverse skill system, which does allow you to I want to use this specific skill for this specific task, and if you're not using the right skill for the right task, it'll fail, right? But at the same time, we do want that player agency, just like with the spellcasters, to be able to weave magic or music or psychic power within the scope of their abilities to do just about anything they can imagine. I'd like to see the other professions also be able to kind of have that same agency, that same freedom, including the benevolent. And I think as we revamp not only the skill system, but like since we're talking about medical in particular, like the benevolent power structure, let's call it for now, for lack of a better term, their abilities to utilize their skills. I think we can streamline that and still allow them the agency to be creative with it.
Yeah.
Depending on their sub-profession or whatever else have you.
On that note, though, I would actually like to present a different idea for the skills. Because I watched an interesting video recently that made a salient point that the introduction of skills to D&D with the very first ever Greyhawk expansion and the introduction of the Thief class is actually what makes D&D very much like a video game, because whenever you have skills, it's you can do this thing or you cannot do this thing. And that is actually a hindrance to player creativity. But I do understand the desire to want to get a roll bonus to something you're really good at. So what I would like to propose is skills being not a defined list, but a fill-in-the-blank thing, where at character creation you have a few blank lines, where characters are able to write down some skills that they are really good at, and then they can get a bonus to those skills based off of, like, you know, just some like, you know, progression, like system, like, you know, with point buy, and then, like, you know, they can gain more skills throughout a campaign, whether they say, hey, I want my character to have this skill, I want them to practice it, or it's DM given, saying like, hey, you know, you went through all of this stuff throughout your adventure, I think we can reasonably say that your character has this particular skill, so you can write it down on a line in your character sheet that you have it, and you get a roll bonus.
So I don't.
If I may,
Yeah.
if I may interject, the skill system is actually the fourth item on the agenda, because the thing that I want to keep and the thing that I want to really strongly look at, the one I want to keep is the health system. The one I want to really strongly look at is the skill system.
Okay.
If everybody doesn't mind, I would like to put a pin in this one and table it until we get to the skill system in the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if
Otherwise,
we
we're going to
finished
get
talking about the whole thing
badly
with
sidetracked.
The combat situation and the portrayal of, like, Wilhelm's skills and stuff. I don't think we actually finished discussing that before we started talking about whatever this is.
Yeah, I was still in the middle of introducing the second pillar. The second pillar is we solve practical problems, the old school role-playing way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can feel that when you guys are trying to figure out what's going on with her, you know, and I'm trying to not meta, but at the same time, like, help you, or explain, like, what you rolled this, and let me, you know, express to you something. Like, as much as there is published about this illness, there's also, like, a lot that isn't published. So while you know certain things, you don't know everything. And that one of the things about someone who is being inflicted with this is not always going to be obvious. You know, they're going to make attempts. This is somebody who can turn anything into anything. Like, I literally opened up the obsidian dome above us and let you through.
Yeah.
That was very silly.
I shape reality to what I want it to be. Why then would you think that you can investigate past what I hope you don't notice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that there is a definite truth to that specific situation too. Like, the nature of that disease is to kind of be subtle. It wants to spread.
Yeah.
but we're getting into like real fine details, I think, with that.
Mhm.
And I think what you're trying to get into is how
Broader.
because we're doing both a Stark skill system and a logistic problem solving system.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, there is no definitive yes or no. It's just kind of guesswork. There's no rule.
Yeah.
There's no structure there.
Yeah.
That I get. Like we are lacking some structure, and it does tend to drag things out a little bit because we're waffling back and forth about, well, I could try this. Let's roll for that. Maybe if I do this.
My proposal, in this instance, like using as an example, because I don't consider the case of Genesis's virus more than a good case study.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a huge issue. It's just the most recent thing that happened to us.
Yeah.
But to use it as a case study, in the Cairne system, rather than in D&D, where there's certain expectations as to how the skills work, I think the practical old-school role-playing approach would have been getting information is not a skill check. Doing something with information is a skill check. So, Wilhelm being a trained benevolent, he shouldn't have to make a medicine check to analyze his patient.
I agree 100%.
He should have to make a medical check to do something as ridiculous as conduct a psychic vision-aided inspection of Genesis's blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that, though, because if this illness wants to spread, it's its own sort of impetus. Like, or I don't know if that's what the word is, but like it has its own motivations to not be discovered. So maybe the check is to overcome that instead of.
Well, is it a self-disguising illness?
It is to a degree.
Self-disguising in a person who can create reality to be what they want. Like,
think if you are familiar with.
If I may make one quick point, like, it would make sense to make a check in this instance, like, considering that Genesis is patient 0.
Yeah, well...
Not to identify the disease in particular, but to observe the symptoms. Observing symptoms shouldn't be a role.
Fair.
Yeah, well... And once again, we're being very specific with this particular incident.
Yeah.
But think about the disease that Genesis got was roughly, very, very roughly based upon Toxoplasmosis gondii, if you're familiar.
Yes.
And you know how that reacts in rats and other rodents. It literally turns the fear thing off and makes them run at cats so that it can get eaten and gestate in the digestive tract of a cat. So I use that kind of, this is rewiring the brain to intentionally spread, which makes the person a little bit of loose cannon, hallucinate, and that type of thing. And it's more intense in Genesis than it would be in others, because Genesis is a powerful psychic, and her brain, if it fractures, obviously, and this is getting into like really fine details of the situation, but you know,
a specific one. So what I would say instead is that you've designed a disease as a gameplay element that is intentionally going to be very frustrating.
Yes.
for basically any party, but especially in this particular situation.
Yes.
If you're committed to that bit of game design, that's whatever. Just deploy it carefully, I guess. You know?
Well, that's what I mean.
We got through it fine.
This is a very specific.
This is a
incident.
specific one.
And if
but
you think about,
general,
if you think about how many times you guys have been infected with diseases, how like how honestly. But I mean,
just like a couple.
But I mean,
I was really hungry for a long time.
That did happen.
Over the years, though, if you really think about it, like how rare it actually is, and how easily you've overcome them before this one in particular, like the Terrairs thing was honestly more of a curse than a disease. So that was a special case too in its own regard. But that's the Wendigo's hunger. You know, he was becoming that thing. And you guys defeated that. That's
Did require a goddess's blessing.
It's
just a
true.
little.
It's true. But I'm just saying, like, generally your diseases, you've had a much easier time in the past.
Yes.
Well, we did also have the other disease where we had to use the vial to cure because it was the only way not to lose a party member.
Yeah.
To take it to the more general statement, I'm advocating for an approach to role-playing through problems that is lighter on skill checks. Take a very strict adherence to skill checks are for when there is a reasonable chance of failure. And for that failure to be definite and final.
Yeah.
When it does occur, because that, we do a lot of experimentation in Cairne, and we want to continue doing a lot of experimentation in Cairne. We try things that are incredibly off the wall, that are very creative solutions, and that you have to think about for some time to figure out, what would this do exactly? Would this function? Would this achieve the thing they want or do some other thing? That takes a lot of time, so we have to remove as much ambiguity elsewhere that we can.
Yeah. Okay. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
So,
think
like, as a balance thing, not in terms of balancing power levels, but of balancing your time allocation in the game.
the real
You want to have a
question
lot
is,
of creativity, you got to take out a couple skill checks.
and granted, right now a lot of this is mainly knowledge-based skills. And I think where the roleplay knowledge works, at the same time, are we expecting the onus of actually knowing what they're talking about to fall on the player? Or could they not
Therein
make...
lies the interesting question. That is a game design choice, and I want your opinion on it specifically, as the man writing most of the world.
As much as I would love to annoy the hell out of people and be like, hey, read a book, nerd. I don't think we can expect that of everyone. As far as, like, somebody wants to play a xenobiologist,
Yes. How much animal biology have you studied in order to be a xenobiologist?
And I think that's been some of the hard time for Jay with Wilhelm, too, is that man has done a tremendous amount of
Medical
off-camera research
Yeah.
so that he could roleplay the medical part of it. And kudos to him. Like, it's amazing how much work he's done, but it is a big expectation at the same time. And I don't want to pull the benevolent class, for instance, away from people who aren't so inclined.
Willing to do that.
Yeah. And that's where the skills come in. If you don't know as a player, this is your chance to say, well, my character went to college for this specific thing. Let's see if he remembers what he learned.
Yes. So,
And that would be the argument for skill. I like the roleplay aspect. I do.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is find a median in there.
that's what we're looking for here. I would vote for, I would push for on my end. If the person doesn't know, you provide them the information, but they have to choose what to do with it, and what they do with it may require the check.
Yeah.
And on sort of the like point of, like, skills being, oh, I went to college and I know this, Jacob and I had a discussion about that, and we really think that things like that, where you had to have highly specialized training to be able to, like, know or do the thing, should be relegated to abilities.
Again, I'd rather talk about that when we get to the skills section.
Okay, well,
That's fair. That's fair.
I had to put it out there while the thought was still out there, but we'll stick a pin in that one
Yeah.
again.
So just right now, for the topic of checks and logic, we'll call it. It's the checks and balances.
Yes.
Checks and logic. I think we could develop a system that we could rule quickly, if that makes sense. Like, oh god, I'm trying to put it into words what's in my head here.
Take your time. Take your time.
But basically, because the main thing we need to be able to do is to communicate this to another game master who's never seen the world before, right?
Yes.
They got to be able to pick this up and be like, okay, this is how skills and knowledge-based checks work.
Mm-hmm.
So to explain that to them, I think that's going to come into the ability workings as well.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, like getting into the creativity of allowing a benevolent, for instance, to utilize their healing abilities creatively within the scope of their abilities, much like the Arcanist would. You know, their ability to manipulate magical energy and then fling it out in another form based upon the limitations of your learned or gained ability scores, right?
Mm.
Here, I'm gonna pull up my list here. Notes everywhere. We need a big table to do this at.
If only.
All right, so since the benevolence are a big topic right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's look real quick at the sub professions until we come up with a better term for sub profession. Specializations, maybe that might be a better term. So we've got the benevolent paradigm, who's kind of like a faith healer, more or less, without true faith, right? A field medic, which that speaks for itself. You know, they're battlefield medic, basically. The heretic, which is the mad scientist. The naturalist, once again, that's an easy one. The straight up physician, the doctor. The researcher, which is a research scientist. The apothecary, who is kind of like our version of what I would call the alchemist, let's say. Basically a nature-aligned chemical specialist. The mortician, who deals with death, the dead, the undead, and how to properly deal with them. And the xenobiologist, who is like a xenobiologist.
Yeah.
So, like, we have these specializations, and within these specializations, their abilities and the packages that they get for the specializations will come into play. So I think within that, let's say you are a field medic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Johnny Two Hands gets one of his hands blown off, you know, in a fight. The field medic runs up. He's like, okay, I've got to... You know, he's mangled, he's bleeding profusely, I've got to fix this. I say, well, you're a field medic, so you've got, you know, this skill, this skill, this skill, this ability. How do you want to do it? And he tells me what he wants to do. I say, roll your ability based upon the DC that I give him. Boom. Pass or fail.
That's perfectly, like, reasonable to me. Because if you have somebody who has done a little research, the way that Jay has for Wilhelm, then he's going to come up and he's going to say, all right, I saw off a clean break. I'm going to perform, I'm going to amputate what's left. I'm going to cut it back. He's going to tie off the arteries. He's going to know all the stuff. He can just say he does that.
Yeah.
Somebody who knows nothing apart from having read the profession description of field medic can say something as vague as I need to stop the bleeding, and then you can tell them,
Yeah.
these are the resources you have at your disposal.
And I think that might simplify things. Because
I would agree.
One of the things we've been playing at with Wilhelm is when we started with Wilhelm was a benevolent, period. And Wilhelm had all the abilities that came with the benevolent, and they were level-based at the beginning, and very defined and cut and dried, and out of order in a really weird way, because I was on crack, I guess, when I wrote them originally. And so we've been finding the identity of the benevolent through Wilhelm throughout this entire playthrough. We've been identifying who is the benevolent in many ways, and Wilhelm has defined that in many ways through both his complaints and concerns, the things he didn't like that he would bring to me, and the things he did like, as well as his suggestions he's made along the way. Like, he has helped me tremendously flesh this out. And I think through listening to his input, and you guys' input as well, obviously, I think if we do kind of allow people to not just be a general benevolent, but to specialize like we have here, I think we're going to simplify things and make things roll a little faster, but at the same time, like I keep saying, give the players a little more agency with what they can do within that scope. And I think that might help kind of, tell me what you're doing, here's the skills you need to do it, make the roll. Boom. What do you think?
I would find this an acceptable solution, personally. It doesn't require much modification to what we've already written. It's purely a matter of GM discretion, basically.
Yeah.
This would be something that goes in the Game Master's Guide for Cairne. To how to handle skill checks, what constitutes making one, is the player has been presented with sufficient information to make a decision, and they have given you a course of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I think it's cut and dry, but not railroading.
Exactly. You're not meta, you're just saying, okay, here is the information you would have, choose.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
I think that's all it would take. So, that's the second pillar, and a very productive discussion of how skill checks should work.
Mm-hmm.
The third one, and I think it's one everybody here is on board with, is grow as a person, not as a class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is intentionally being made more diffuse, more selectable, because we're trying to let people play their character, develop their character in one direction or another based on what makes sense in the story for how they're intending them to be as a person. Not just because a rogue who gets to level 17 gets fucking resilient mind or whatever.
Yeah.
You pick the next thing that you get. It doesn't really matter what profession you are. You can take stuff from elsewhere.
Yeah, you grow based upon the experience of the story and the character, rather than
Yes.
here's your progression based on your class, which is that's something we've wanted. I should say that's something I've wanted from the onset.
years.
Yeah, because it makes more sense, and that way we don't, like in D&D, if you had a party of 5 rogues, they would all, aside from their subclass or whatever, be the same.
There is like 70% overlap. You're all obscenely powerful.
Yeah, and they would all have the same abilities at the same levels, and
It's boring.
it is, and
It's especially boring once you've played a bunch of D&D.
Oh yes.
You start mining the outside reaches of the mechanical systems for something interesting to do.
Exactly. Which I've noticed myself very much. Every time I go to make a character, I'm like, played it. So yeah, and that's something I want to be able to get away from. If you want to be a gunslinging pirate pilot with the ability to cast magic and a mutation that lets you see in the dark with a purple butt cheek, let's do this. You know what I'm saying?
You should design your character and then start laying abilities and skills over it until it matches well enough.
Exactly.
It's not going to be 1000% perfect. I think if you want that, you've basically got to play like Fate and do the thing where you write your own class for every character.
Yeah, but you can get there. You can.
But you can
definitely
get there. You can build it up. You can do it and make the mechanics make sense eventually.
Yeah, and nobody starts off as an expert, right?
Nobody's that powerful day one unless they play, I don't know, a mentalist or something.
Which
Don't get me nerfed again.
Well, I mean, which going back too, the mentalist had a lot of the same problems the benevolent did. The mentalist had the same issue where it was this very general, kind of vague thing, right? But we have, once again, specializations for the mentalist now too that lets you really focus and hone in on a specific aspect of being a mentalist. And of course, you can expand out from there, as with all of them. You could be a benevolent mentalist, go crazy, be nuts. But it's the same thing, I think, and like I keep saying, I know I keep harping on it, but it's definitely something I want to do with all the professions, is give them the chance to hone themselves and have the agency to express what they feel. This is what this is to me, and I want to show you what it is. And that's that creativity. Like when I say, okay, here's what, the realm within which you can work. How are you going to use the tools at your disposal? Be creative, go nuts. And when you guys do it, it makes my heart sing. Like I just explode inside with joy. I love it.
We have had some good times, just kind of poking about with the weirder bits of our professions.
Yeah, I love it.
So that covers the 3 core design pillars of Cairne to me.
I have one quick question.
Please go right ahead. I was about to pull it up for discussion anyways. Go right ahead.
Awesome. So the building your character section, all I have to go on, by the way, is the thing that we were given very recently that has not really been revised really recently. So this whole discussion has been like me following what you're saying in the energy and the vibes. I can't actually follow the outline, right? So in building your character, you were mentioning like you do your abilities after you choose a profession. Is that still like...
Your profession will give you a package, so to speak, like a starter package.
Here,
Okay,
the actual answer, from like a document standpoint. You might notice there are no abilities or skills in the document. It's because I hadn't fucking solved it yet.
Yeah, I just my inquiry is species and profession is more of the narrative, right? Stats, skills, and abilities are more of the statistics you use.
They're the
to
crunchy
portray
bits,
those.
yeah. They have numbers on them.
So could we not do species and profession first, stat, skills, and abilities after?
100% you could.
Yeah, the profession's going to give you like a skill package that's basically attuned to your profession, right?
Yeah,
if you're
I
a
really
physician,
wanted that.
you're going to have like anatomy and physiology as a skill because you're a physician. You can't be a physician without it. You know what I mean? So there's certain things that are going to come with the profession. Everything outside of that is basically where we get into like the point buy and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that should all be together because here it says species, stats, profession, skills, abilities, which I really think is kind of staggering the narrative and the statistics of it to a point.
I have no particular qualms about reordering that however you feel like. They're largely independent of one another apart from the professions.
Yeah. But
So-
it's a good point
yeah.
for the overall layout when we get to that.
Yeah, agreed,
that point
agreed.
too, because like I said, we do need to be able to hand this to someone that has never seen the world and say, go play.
Yeah, and then in 30 minutes of reading, maybe they have a character sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Oh, and Master Miss Shun says he has something to tell you in chat there. So.
Oh no. Oh no.
Just figured I'd let you know. But yeah.
So yeah, the first section was entirely vibes, by the way. This was me talking about my design goals with the document rather than anything that was in the document itself.
Okay. It's all good.
So that's a perfectly fair critique there, Master Miss. None of that was written down in there.
Yeah. No, that's all fair.
But before we move on to things that are written down in there, and I want to focus on 2 of them, specifically the health system and the skill system,
Okay.
I will open up general discussion, design goals for Cairne. Church, I especially want to hear from you.
Okay.
If there are any design goals you have that you feel like weren't covered and that you feel like aren't really present in the system document, now is a great time to mention them so we all hear about them.
Well, I know I'm going on memory. I don't have the document open in front of me right now, but just because I've got 4 screens going already. I know we talked about the general overall physical and intellectual and social statistics, right?
Yes.
And I think we had it to where there were the core ones, and then each one broke into 2, right? Three. That's right. And I liked that system. I think that's still on there, right?
Yeah, that's still in there.
I liked that system. I like where we're going with the skill discussion as far as how they work. and the abilities that will come into play as well. I know we haven't really talked about abilities yet.
Yeah.
There's going to be well, that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to talk about, because there will be abilities, but within those abilities, it's going to be really open-ended.
Yes, that's why it needs more discussion. That's why That's why I looked at a big PowerPoint and said, "Fuck this." Except skills did stay on the agenda. It's because they're very important.
Yeah.
But so apart from just pointing out that is very critical. Nothing else you want to throw in right now?
Well, I mean, just focusing on basic character creation to start with, which is going to be a big thing. Like GMing the setting.
You get there.
Yeah, it's going to be mainly storytelling, which is, it's a narrative system. Once you get the rules of how the skills and abilities work, it'll apply to NPCs and monsters just as well as it will to characters. So we're talking about kind of one and the same thing there. The brass tacks of GMing that's something I can nail down as I go, because it is primarily storytelling. But
you do it with personal flair, anyways.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. And I think we're on a good track here too. As long as, like I said, we got the stats, like we talked about, the skills, like we talked about. I think the abilities is the big hurdle right now.
All right, good. So we'll move on.
Does anyone else have?
Yeah, please. Anybody who wants to throw in about design goals for the system, please now.
I would love to see the new system parallel itself. Like, I don't know if that's the term, but I would like to see things phrased coherently in a way that aligns with what you're saying. I don't know if, like, that's the fine details of editing, or if it's
That'll be a lot of it, I think, fine details.
It's funny, that's a critique I also gave Jacob.
Yeah. So I would agree with you. I think that's an editing thing.
Yeah.
When we have a draft that is accurate, not good, but accurate, it contains descriptions of the systems that we want to be in there.
Yeah.
Then I would go back and I would do an editing pass for consistency from a technical writing standpoint. I would standardize the terminology used to describe things and make sure they're all in agreement with each other.
Yeah, like determines, provides, and may offer versus determines, provides, and offers. And then there's a whole section of like food comfort, food rest and thirst.
Yes.
That uses different terms, like rest, hunger, and thirst could be called, like, it has food, water, and rest in the rest of the passage, and I'm like, okay, but align it,
I feel your pain. It causes me the same pain to read it back. Sections of this document were written off and on through, PhD in depression across a period of 2 years.
Fair enough.
And not edited for consistency at any point after that, because it wasn't even remotely done.
Well, I tell you what, Master Miss, would you like to be part of the editing team?
Yeah, please.
I mean,
we'll start writing it down.
You're in.
Yeah, we'll start writing it down and stick it in front of you.
You're in. You're nominated.
It basically we'll make you our baseline. If it makes sense to you, we're good.
We're good. We're gold.
Voluntold, yeah. This is great.
When you've got a project of this size, it is always very important to have somebody who is not you read it.
Yes.
Punctuation, paragraph breaks, and no run-on sentences. I'd be happy to be a copy editor.
Yeah,
like, you've got the link to the online document, right? You should be able to, click in the editing mode and start making, like, comments and suggested edits. I've made several. Go nuts.
I will say, just a proof of concept for how important this is. Go back to the homebrew site.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that's why I got to work on the Sonic Esions and the Vorstad write-up, which is still not done, but...
Yeah, that was an editing nightmare.
Well, how long has it been? I mean, how long has it been since you were doing a homebrew site?
It's gone.
Couple years.
Couple years, yeah.
But I think you were in that when I started. So, because how long have I been playing with y'all?
Yeah, we were still in homebrew. When
Yeah,
you
no,
joined
we were
us,
absolutely still using
because
that at the time.
I remember it pained you greatly to read it.
Yes, it did. I was like, oh yeah.
The
Yeah,
suffering.
December of 20. I think in December of 2020 is probably when I joined on.
Yeah, and in my defense, all of that was written in HTML with no option for spell check.
Oh, God help
great.
him.
Yeah, that
God love him. God love him.
Yeah.
He's composing in Web 1.0.
every bit of that was written in HTML code. It wasn't just like a Word document by any
All
means.
right, so you are forgiven all sins.
Geocity's website.
Yeah.
Man,
Angel Fire.
Exactly.
Check
That's what
out
it
my
felt like.
web ring.
Fair enough.
All right, so duly noted. You've raised an excellent point, and I think if we're going to have a lot of authors on this, if everybody's contributing text, it may even do us well to come up with a very small style guide.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's kind of de rigueur for this sort of project. Once you've got my threshold when I was in academic writing was always 4. If you've got 4 people on a project that's longer than a single paper, you need a style guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
you just steal somebody else's.
Yeah, because things as simple as voice, what active voice.
Are you active or
Yes.
passive?
Oh my god.
Do you address the reader directly as you?
Yeah.
Or are you giving more omniscient third-person descriptions?
There's a couple of flip-flops in here, and I can't say I didn't notice.
No, trust me. Believe.
There's
Dissertation, drunk, depressed.
there's plenty of that on the World Anvil site too. Like,
Yeah.
Fair enough.
as much as I try, like it, and even though it has spell check, like it still gets past me.
But
Yeah, and
duly
I
noted.
wasn't really. I wasn't trying to focus on like the grammar of it all. I mean like in the travel section, for example, the sentence "crossing from our moon to the Ventride Waste would likely by a fatal journey," which I know you meant be a fatal journey on foot, given the distance, chances of hazard, difficulty of supply, but by train and wagon is a trip made frequently by many Cairnites. What does that sentence tell me? That a foot journey is slower and more dangerous than one on a wagon? Why do I need to know that? Why is that in the travel guide? It makes no sense for it to be there because it conveys no actual essential information.
Is that in
know?
World Anvil or in the?
It's in the document that
Church
was
is going,
sent.
wait, did I write that? No, that was in the playtest document.
It's in the that makes no sense. And there's another section in Rest, Food, and Hunger that talks about like, you're telling me that even though my species may not consider 8 hours of sleep an important part of taking care of myself, that if I don't do that, I can't heal for the day. The sentence failure to do any one of the tasks means that improving wounds will not heal that day, although worsening wounds like diseases will get worse. That doesn't convey the fact like the species may not need that,
Yeah. Well,
So
of course-
exceptions to the general rule that are species-based would be in species descriptions, which are not written yet in that document.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
But no, I mean
it's-
those are
it
good
doesn't
points.
No,
And-
you're good. Jacob's writing is very fluffy, and I told him like you need to make this way less fluffy.
Well,
Which
but
I usually do
this is
in
all
the editing pass.
this is all first draft.
Yes.
So like that's all. Like I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, I think right now we need to focus on
Actual system.
just the brass tacks. We get that actual system, and then we can really dive in and start sinking our teeth into the 10-ounce ribeye that is Cairne, or
there's a
fluffy
lot.
salad,
I want
whatever you're
12
into.
ounce ribeye at the very least. 10 ounce.
Big.
Or a fluffy salad if that's what you're into. I don't know, tofu. We can do it. It's all right. It's Cairne. It's there.
Moving along so that we have time to reach our final agenda items.
Yes.
I'll buy steak tomorrow at the meat market by my house.
The bit of game design that I actually like is the core concept of the health system. I'd like to defend keeping this.
I'm with you. I like the danger. I like the I shouldn't say I like the danger. I like the reality of this is your life. Period.
Yes, it's not some abstract number that you can bring down to 5 and it'll eventually go back up to 150.
Yeah.
No, you as a body can sustain only so many wounds and injuries before you fall over, and those are specific wounds and injuries.
Yeah. And I am all for that.
Mhm.
Which does mean that damage will need to be adjusted to reflect that
Yes.
too.
Yes,
Yeah, I
and
will say, Cairne, as we have it written, is a pretty low numbers system, as we have it right now. If you turn on like comments, like the editing mode, you'll see a suggested edit for me, like, oh, like an example combat scenario that reflects that this is pretty low numbers. Like in the scenario I've like suggested for Jacob to put in the document, like, you know, the person only took like one, I'll call it a box of damage.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it's I don't know if you get, not to tout other projects here, but I don't know, you guys saw the Surviving Midnight thing I did, right?
Yeah.
Like there was a very simple system for combat, for instance, in that where you basically take your stat, your applicable stat, which is a 1 through 6 number, plus your applicable skill, which is a 1 through 6 number, and roll 3d6 or roll a d6 and add it to those, right? And the opposing would take their defensive stat and their defensive skill, whether it be to soak the hit or avoid the hit, plus a d6 and roll it. And whoever wins, wins.
That's
indeed, we have something very similar here. I remembered your discussion
Yeah, and that was the thing, like,
way back, Surviving Midnight.
and hit points only went up to 6
Yeah.
at the most, but at the same time, damage was between 1 and 3 was like massive damage.
Yeah, no, you just got screwed. You took a 3 hit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bad
that's
times.
basically same here, except damage we have determined by how many successes you roll, and if you successfully land a hit, how much damage you take is basically like the attacker's roll minus the defender's roll, and that's the damage.
Yeah. Anything that can simplify and speed combat.
Yes, because combat is very slow in D&D. It's much faster in other systems, but it's also much less precise.
Yeah. And
And-
this keeps the danger too. Like if you let's just say just using the Surviving Midnight for example, not saying it has to be that way, but you know, if a gun does 2 damage and you take a hit and you've only got 5 hit points, like you're hurt.
What an awful day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, maybe we should run. You know?
Yeah.
And a couple of additional advantages to doing it this way. It makes the benevolent more interesting to play.
Yeah.
As it stands, Wilhelm has healed some number of hit points, but only actually treated maybe a third as many or a quarter as many injuries or illnesses, right?
Yeah.
It's happened. It's happened regularly enough because you give them stuff to do. We keep getting into trouble. But it would be better, it would make the benevolent more interesting if every injury, every illness, everything like that wasn't just hit points. It had a description, it had a nature, it had a course of treatment that is appropriate.
Yeah.
There's no need to have injuries that aren't those things if you have a system with benevolent in it.
Yeah, I mean every type of damage should be treatable to some point.
Yeah, it should all be treatable, but it should have specific treatments.
And in some cases, repercussions.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the section in the health system description where it goes into some injuries get worse. That's a repercussion. Some injuries can leave scars. They might permanently reduce your capacity to take wounds.
Or reduce an ability.
Yeah, they might reduce an ability. If you
stat,
get your
I
hand
should
cut
say.
off, that stays there. That hand stays gone.
Yeah, or like I said, yeah. Kind of like going back to the early days with you guys when a couple of you took chlorine inhalation damage.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could have been like a
That was exactly what I was
fortitude type
thinking
hit.
of.
Yeah, that could have been a permanent fortitude hit on some level. You know, your ability to exert yourself extended period of time because you can't breathe.
One
as well.
box on your health list stays filled in, and the description next to it is of the injury you've taken. It says, you know, you ameliorate this with breathing treatments. If you don't, it gets worse again.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that because, like, once again going back to the beginning, I want injuries to mean something.
Yes.
I want them to be important, and when you do go down, I forget where I heard this. It was something that somebody else had implied. It was in D&D, but I really liked the idea of every time you go down, not die, but go down, you come back from it with some type of scar. Appropriate.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And just it's flavor, it's role play, but you know, there's a reason when you see the old veteran gnarled warriors, they're covered in scars and they've got a story for every one of them, you know. And I think it adds to that the meaningfulness and the memory of, oh yeah, I remember, you know, when I got this, let me tell you about it. You know.
I feel you. I've been giving him to listener the whole time. You know, he's still got a lot of bark around his ankles from getting those legs cut off, and now he's got crunchy blackened hands.
Yeah, and I like
those are
that.
Gonna stay.
I like that. So yeah, and I think we should definitely keep those concepts, those core concepts, like that as well.
All right. So that was my pitch, basically, for keeping in the bit that I liked. Would anybody like to make any additional comments on it before we move on?
Anyone?
Maybe just one more.
Please go ahead.
That's why we're here.
So we've had a lot of good collaboration lately, in terms of interfacing two different professions together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd love to know if there's a possibility for the exploration of a mechanic that would blend, like, or give benefits for trying to blend the two. Like blend your different professions. Like if there's space for, you know, advantages for trying to work with another individual in the party, or what.
I believe I have it in there under cooperation.
Yeah, and we've talked about synergy.
Yes.
In the past.
But yeah, no, not related to the health system, but yeah, I totally feel you, and I think that should be part of it.
And synergy is going to be one of those things that we really are going to have to sit down. We could probably have a whole meeting on how synergies could work.
Well,
just because there's so many possible combinations and variations. It'll be hard to actually write down, like, this is how this and this work.
Yeah,
This is
with
how
as
this and
many
this work.
abilities as you intend to be in here,
We just
the
need
list would be unmanageable.
We'd probably
I'll be
need
right
just
back,
an overall rule of mechanics,
Yeah.
the mechanic rule of these are how these abilities come together. This is how it affects your dice pool, for instance.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That exactly. Not like a specific case, because that's so many different permutations.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So I had it under cooperative actions. Players in a party will work together to improve their odds against the many dangers of Cairne. Modeling these actions can be complex and they can vary greatly. But I basically give notes on they're either simultaneous actions where you're both doing something that resolves at the same time, or contributing where one person does their part and then somebody else does their part and somebody else does their part, but eventually they build up to resolving the action, right?
Yeah. Well,
Just not all at once.
An extreme version of that would be the internet you guys made within your brains. Which, I mean, if you think about it, is definitely a conceptual idea we should include in the source material.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to do that, and and an overall ruling of how that would work. And I think when we get into the synergy sections, that would probably be a good place to include that.
It'd be a good example. It's like you give it the little call out block, and that's your example of how the ability synergy works.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
There's something I'd like to contribute about that that's related to, I want to say, I'll have to find, but I want to say that Hornet had a basically arm hander, and it is the idea of like what you can do to essentially, this idea of rallying for a like I think I might actually already have something like this, but it's the idea of when you're a fighter or a tank or whatever it is, that you have the ability to be by the fact of that if you're by the side of somebody, like for example, you only have 2 points, but if I go ahead and I stand next to you in my role, that then I can basically take the action, take the damage, do whatever, right? It's related to kind of like it's a defense mechanism in a way. You know what I mean?
So
But it has to do with cooperation. I'll have to find exactly the term. I loved being able to.
I know what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
basically adding a defensive bonus to your companion because
Exactly.
you're working together.
Yeah, I would label it as bodyguarding, in the most like original term.
Yeah. And
But
it's something
that would totally be a combatant skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I seem to remember it was something we did. It was a character. It's been a while, but it was a character that I played back when it was like when I was playing. I think Brendan was in that. It was like Brendan and I, and Dustin was the DM over on TT2KB. And I just really loved playing. Believe it or not, I loved playing that character because it wasn't ranged attack. It was actually more sword play and shield work and stuff.
Well, the combatant specializations, that's definitely something we could include in that, I think. I think I've got it set up right now with the exception of the factotum, which there's only 3. There are 9 specializations for every profession right now. I think I filled it out to where I have 9 for every one. Which is very fun, by the way.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a number of those that could work in that regard. I think work in that type of skill very easily.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to have like a little sort of brain dump session amongst the combatants to really just look at that and go, okay, how does this work? Because I know we talk a lot about the medicine, the spiritualism, all these things, but I do think that having something that taking a look at that.
So combatant go bonk.
Yeah. Well, the combatant's going to have the same free range of motion as the others. The ability to be creative.
I'm entirely with you on this one, Snacks. I have a long-standing and very visible love of playing basic fight man in a tabletop system. I enjoy having to improvise anything interesting that I do within the limits of basic human anatomy in most cases.
Yeah.
As it stands, I think we'll be able to meet your requirements. We should definitely sit down when we get into profession design and come up with a good diverse array of stuff for combatant sub-professions to be doing.
Yeah.
I've tried to give them some stuff already in combat that makes their role in combat more exciting.
Yeah, and just...
They have much more active abilities that they can use in melee combat than most other classes.
Yeah, and if you do go looking through, I think some of them still have the D&D subclass information that Chris tried to write up for a lot of them. Ignore that.
Yeah, that's completely a lie now.
The general descriptions are still accurate as far as what each one is. But anything below that, kind of just ignore. I haven't had a chance to remove it all. Not knocking anything Chris did. He worked really hard on it and did a good job. It was just, it's very D&D.
It's very D&D, and we're getting rid of that. We're getting out of here.
But yeah, there's basic fighter man in there. There's a few basic fighter mans in there.
But I'm with you on this one, Snacks. There should definitely be a combatant sub-profession where your specialization is, I carry the big shield, I block for my friends. That's always just a blast.
Yeah.
I do be playing Reinhardt in Overwatch.
I think that would be a good just ability.
Yeah.
More than specialization, because any of
Yeah,
them
it's just
could
like
carry it.
shield use.
Yeah, or just defense even. Like if you're a martial artist, like defending
Yeah.
an ally, some type of skill that allows you to do that, or ability, not skill, but
This is a perfect opportunity to segue. Is everybody ready to segue into skills, abilities, professions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes.
All right. Hannah has given her description already of how she thinks the skill system should work. It's one she's raised before to you as well, Church, so you should remember it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure at this point.
What I was gonna say earlier, too, about what you said, Hannah, was, I think we're already moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Rather than just leaving blank lines and letting people come up with whatever they want, they've got the skills that come with their profession that they're necessary. Like I said, like anatomy and physiology for a physician, but
And I think
they have the
that's-
ability to point by any skill from the list that they want, and including anything that's not there that they make up. I got no problem with allowing that, as long as it's not ridiculous. You know what I mean?
That's sort of the thing, and this goes back to that video I watched.
Can I do
that-
the generic spiel before you do it again?
Go
though?
for it.
So, I'm not going to advocate for any particular solution. I'm just going to describe the problem that I ran into trying to conceptualize the skills and abilities. There is a reason it's not in that document. It's because I could not come up with a way that I found even remotely satisfying to me.
Okay.
And I opened the floor to develop one. Here is the problem I ran into.
Okay.
There are a substantial number of professions. There are a truly bonkers number of sub-professions. We're at a grand total of 9 times 1, 2, 3, 4, what are we at? 10, 11 at this point?
Only 3 for the factotum.
Only 3 for factotum, so 9 times 10 and then plus 3.
So 93.
93 sub-professions.
Awesome.
Beautiful, really, if you're playing Pathfinder. And you're feet chaining your ass into oblivion.
Yeah.
But the problem I have here is that if all of those sub-professions comprise more than a single ability, that is a unimaginable number of abilities, it's going to be very hard for a significant number of people to choose amongst them in a meaningful way. You're very much into analysis paralysis by the time you've got a list of hundreds potentially of abilities to pick from, and you could pick literally any one of them. And that's before we get into the skill list, which was already 200 items long.
Over 200, but yeah.
So I looked at it. I could not personally come up with a way of laying that out that makes it manageable for people.
Okay.
Because from a design standpoint, when I started without having looked at how many sub-professions there had become, I said, okay, a profession is important. It contains a number of abilities that are supposed to fully describe a meaningful actor in Cairne. You don't have to take all of them. It'd be weird if you did. But in total, they should be showing you this is what a spiritualist does. This is what a combatant does. This is what an artist does. And I said, okay, well, how many is that going to take? 6, maybe, total. Like, default, this is enough to describe the base abilities of the profession. And I said, okay, well, we've been playing this where these base abilities of the profession are really broadly applicable. You can really twist and turn some of your abilities, or you've allowed us to, rather, really twist and turn the basic abilities of our professions to achieve some incredible things. I didn't have to make Listener take fire redirection in order to burn all of my Arcanist points and turn back the blast in our last session.
Yeah.
Genesis didn't have to take obsidian manipulation in order to make the dome permeable long enough for people to get through it. You let us do these things with our basic shit. If we keep that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have literally hundreds of abilities.
Yeah. Well, so here's what, and I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like already, like it is daunting to
It's a
look at
very
it,
daunting task, and it's one that defeated me. Please give me your take. What are you thinking?
So here's what I'm thinking. There's going to be like since I have it open and I'm looking at it, the combatant, right?
Mhm.
So we've got just think about the basic combatant.
Yes.
And think about a number of abilities that would apply, abilities and skills that would apply just to the basic combatant, just to the basic spiritualist, mentalist, whatever, right?
Mhm.
In general, like we have it now. And then look at the specializations and then cherry pick where they would all go within that, right?
Mhm.
Like, for instance, a Fusilier
Sure.
is going to have marksmanship abilities. He's going to have, the ability to maintain weapons, like guns and whatnot, and basic soldiering skills, right? Whereas the martial artist is going to be a whole different ball game, a whole different skills, but they're both combatants,
Yes.
right? So a general combatant with no specialization, you could imagine like they would have brawling, they would have martial arts, they would have gunplay, they would have defense, all these basic abilities and skills. But I think if we just come up with that basic list, disperse them out through the specialists in that regard, and then once you have that, if you're a combatant, like say it's cheaper to get a combatant skill because you've already got some skill in that area. It's just like if you're a guitarist, once you learn the guitar, if you want to go and learn the banjo or the piano, it's a whole lot easier because you have a general understanding of the core principle of music. So combatant would be the same way. A spiritualist would be the same way. You have a basic understanding of the core ability. So those skills would be cheaper. If you want to branch out, now I've always said, and this was just me, granted, that and no definitive number of points, obviously, but a skill costs the cheapest, just a base skill under your combatant abilities, right? A combatant skill is cheap. An exterior skill, one that wouldn't come natural, would be a little more expensive. And then the specialist skills, like a combatant that wants to learn neuroscience, it's expensive. It takes time, takes energy, takes effort, right? And then you have your abilities. They would be the next highest cost. Anything within the combatant, once again, cheap. Anything outside, a little more expensive. Anything super specialized, even more expensive. And then the option of buying just a whole secondary profession. Get the whole package, right? So a brawler that picks up Fusilier, for instance. Suddenly he's a brawler and a Fusilier. You get what I'm saying?
Okay, so it sounds to me like you want the sub-professions to be entirely or mostly simply overlaid on the base profession.
Yeah.
Mortification spiritualist doesn't come with 3 or 4 extra abilities that the base spiritualist doesn't have. It has... You build into it almost by acquiring a subset of spiritualist abilities.
Yeah, it allows you
then
to focus.
You focus in.
Yeah.
Do you want the sub-professions to have anything specific to them that is not otherwise available? Do they even have unique abilities per sub-profession? In the mechanical sense, not in the sense that they can narratively do a special thing.
I mean, we could go that route if you think specializing to that degree would be, although there's a part of me that says that wouldn't be, and I know I hate using this term in tabletop, there's a part of me that says that wouldn't be realistic.
Yeah.
It would be unusual, certainly.
Yeah,
And
because
that's-
there's nothing that stops a docker from going out and learning kung fu.
Nothing, apart
Yeah.
from time.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that I was going to interject. I don't think, personally, and I actually presented this to you a while ago in the Cairne chat, and you agreed with me. I don't think a specialization is something that should be like definitive and selectable. I think that we could represent like the specializations as sample builds, basically. So when you're building with the lone exception of the artist, because the packs are very they're important mechanically, but for everyone else, I think the specialization should kind of like in Pathfinder be represented as example builds where you choose the spiritualist profession. You buy abilities within that profession at cost. Anything from any other profession is doubled, but you can build your spiritualist however you want. And then there are example builds within the page where say if a mortificationist is an example of a spiritualist specialization that exists within Cairne. If you would like to build your character this way, then you would use point buy to buy this and this abilities. And it's kind of the same in Pathfinder where there's no dancer subclass, but if you pick a bard, they'll say hey, if you want to build a character that's a dancer, then go feat chain these feats basically.
Yeah. Well,
this is what you would pick.
The only difference, and I'm not even saying I have a problem with that. I think you'd be nerfing yourself, and I think it would lead to min-maxing, which I want to try to avoid.
How would you be nerfing yourself?
Well, the thing is these aren't I mean, they could be suggested builds. I'm not saying they're not. But rather than looking at it as a suggested build, think of it as the beginning of your career, right? You just came out of college and you're an engineer. You have a specialization within that engineering that you studied for, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you started. Now, if you want to go from there into mechanical engineering and biological engineering or whatever, you can expand it. You want to go from there into medical field, you can, and nothing's stopping you, but you're building as you go. But you have that core that you started at. Even if you don't stay with it, even if you move completely away from it, this is the basis of your role play as a character. This is who you were. This is where you started. This is what brought you into the world as an adventurer.
Yeah.
That's all these are. And you could say hey, I just want to be combatant. I want to build. How many points do I get? And you can pick and choose. And I don't have a problem with that. In fact, we could just have that as an option. But rather than, I hate to use the term suggested build, and I do not want to pull anything from Pathfinder.
Right. No, I use it as
go
an
crazy with
illustrative example.
Well, I mean, just as even as an example, I want to be careful because I don't want to tread into another territory like that too much, especially a big one.
Well, personally, I will say, I think that what you're suggesting is actually more limiting to character creation, because my thoughts here and what Jacob and I have discussed is there are different point costs for abilities. Some are 2 points to buy, some are 3 points to buy, and the way we discuss it are the big boy ones are 7 points to buy, and those you can expect to really bank some points to be able to buy some of the big ones. So they're
there's already
representative.
a profession for that, though. There's
Do
a
what?
specific profession just for that. That's the factotum. That's exactly what the factotum is.
For doing a bit from everything.
Yeah.
So, if I might
That's
ask you
what
a
they
couple
are.
questions,
Yeah.
Church. Because I think you have a conception of how professions and abilities interact with each other mechanically, and I want to make sure I understand it fully, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. And just before you say that, though, I do want to put this out there. This is still a discussion. I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think like I'm saying, this is how it is. No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm willing to argue with you over how it works. I just want to understand how you're saying you want it to work.
Yeah, no, that's
because from
fine.
our understanding of how this is all supposed to work, like from the discussions Jacob and I have had, and like the talk between ourselves, like we thought that factotum was utterly redundant and useless. So, and like my point of the abilities was to say like, yeah, this is for all professions. So for you to say that this is like like factotum specific, like clearly we have two different images in our mind here.
And I see part of the way how that's happened now, because you've got a conception where all the skills are bundled into the professions. They're either in or outside of the professional domain. Now the factotum makes more sense to me because it's somebody who's paying that cheap price for every skill.
Yeah, they're the jack of all trades kind of.
They get nothing special for free.
Yeah.
But they can buy cheap everywhere.
Exactly. And they have, that's why I have the 3 different specializations for the factotum. One's a skill monkey, one's an ability monkey, and one is the mutant.
So,
one
my question
gets,
for
like the powers from the other professions.
My question for you. Your conception of professions and abilities. At character creation, when you select a profession, do you think they should get all of the core abilities on the spot? The core abilities, not the sub-profession ones, the core abilities, what you think of as core.
Yeah, I think each one would have a core base set of abilities. Not a lot, like just a few things that everyone within that specialist or everyone within that profession should be able to do.
Okay, so that's an important question. That's an important distinction to make.
And it's something that we would need to sit down and go one by one, obviously.
Yeah, what abilities comprise the core abilities of a profession?
Yeah, like
we've done some thinking about that, but it's something you got to really sit down and consider.
Yeah, like what's some things that every martial fighter would know how to do?
Exactly.
What's some things that every musician specialization would know how to do and understand? So on and so forth. Yeah, no, that would be a definite. Yeah, there would be some core, and I think that would be the benefit to going with a profession over a factotum. Is you're getting the package deal.
Yeah. So alongside those, do you get a bunch of skills for free, or do you merely get the cheap point cost for skills and you spend a starting pool?
Well, the core?
The core skills. Are there core skills as well as core abilities, I guess, is my question.
I imagine there would be some.
Some that just come with the profession, you get them, there's no sense in having you buy them because you couldn't get by without them.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So once you've done these...
And those would be the real basic ones that apply.
Yeah, just like, swordsmanship. You're a combatant.
Yeah,
You've got swordsmanship.
A benevolent knows how to read.
Yeah, you got it. You got it, though. So, after doing this, you have a pool of points with which to finish your character creation. Obviously, you can buy skills. I think I understand your idea of how to buy skills pretty well. There's some that are in your profession. You get a cheap cost. There's some that are not in your profession. They have a higher cost.
Yeah.
I understand this. This is good. We're agreed.
Yeah, because what I was saying with the cost of abilities being like 2, 3, all the way up to 7, this was for like buying an in-profession ability, and that was like how we were proposing that a character progresses, like on like a certain like level of growth, though like no one's going to have defined levels, but you bank points and you use those points to buy new abilities for your profession, and they can just be like any ability within that profession. But if you are say a musician and you want to buy a combatant ability, then buying that combatant ability is going to cost double. meaning like that 2, 3, all the way up to 7 is now 4, 6, all the way up to 14 points that you're going to be spending, which is a lot of points to bank.
Well, there's
But,
gonna be some crossover here and there too.
So
yeah, so like, you know, when you say like, oh, the, you know, point thing is specific to the factotum, I was like, wait, what? Because like the way that we have conceptualized like the point buy and everything, it's for everyone. And that's why, you know, I was thinking, oh, well, the factotum's kind of redundant because it's just like,
it makes
you know,
more sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there
You
will
were
be
saying,
some.
Ginkgo?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, what were you saying, brother?
I don't remember.
I'm sorry, man.
We're very sorry.
It's okay.
Don't recall.
But
I have no
something
memory,
related to the
no
combatant?
memory at all. I don't remember.
Oh,
I don't recall.
yeah. What if
That's
like
your song?
What if?
some
Combatant.
sort of like so? If you're not a combatant, but you've got a combatant friend,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could probably ask them to help you learn like basic swordsplay,
Okay, so
right?
Now we're getting into what constitutes skill training. Another fascinating question.
Yeah, because didn't I do that at one point?
Like if you've been traveling with like a sword master for 6 months out in the wilderness, and you're like, yo, hey, Joe, can you help me like teach me how to defend myself? He'll give you a stick, right, and start like slapping me around over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Well,
until
we did that.
Here's the thing.
Uki did that. Remember?
Yeah, and we had
We were
some
doing
roles
that with
involved
somebody.
too. But here's the thing: if we're going to institute this as a mechanic, right? Which I'm fine with, but I think first off, teaching is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be a master swordsman, but if you can't teach, you're not going to show anybody anything. You just don't have the mindset for it. And you've probably known people like that. God knows I've known many musicians who could never teach another soul to play in their lives ever, under any circumstance, and probably shouldn't.
I knew a mathematician like that for a while. Sadly, he was a math professor.
But at the same time, you got my wheels going there, Ginkgo. I was thinking maybe with the factotum, we could include a specialized ability that allows them to learn by either mimicking or watching. Kind of think 13th Warrior learning how to speak Norse just by listening and watching. I think that would actually be a really cool bonus to being a factotum, is the ability to pick up skills.
Yes. The true skill monkey.
Yeah. So
I do have
I
a
like that.
suggestion
What's that?
for mechanically how this would work. It's not in the design document. I'm sorry, Master Miss. I've only thought of it more recently. Training in something could grant you experience, but only specifically towards the purchase of that thing. You're essentially getting yourself a discount by training. So if you're training with a combatant, you're trying to learn the art of swordsmanship, at the normal progression rate that your GM is giving you experience points to spend on stuff. Once you've put that amount of time in training, you get an experience point that basically only goes towards getting that one ability.
But it gives you the discount.
You get the discount. It's now 1 cheaper to buy it. And then if you keep doing it, maybe it's 2 cheaper to buy it.
Or
Or if you keep doing it long enough, maybe you've accumulated 3 points, it's free. You just take it.
So here's a question. Do we allow for up-training skills and abilities? Taking them more than once, for instance, to
This is
build
one
them
I
up?
wanted to ask you about. So abilities, I think no, honestly.
Well, I mean...
That would be my idea for no... Abilities are like discrete.
Yeah, well, at the same time, like, say an arcanist decides to focus on fire manipulation, whatever, I'm being really general here. And that's just their whole focus, everything they do, and they just gain the ability to push more and more and more into the specific ability. Like, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Same with, like, a swordsman who's, like, his whole life is just dedicated to the blade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just up-training that one ability. And getting little smaller ones along the way still, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, maybe limit it to how far it can go and how often you can upgrade or up-trade it. But that's something that we could even apply to, like, a teaching skill.
That actually was going to be my suggestion for skills, because, like, as you have it now, or at least in that big chart, every skill was, like, rated at a different, like, difficulty level. I don't think that's a very good idea, because I don't like that, you know, we have to define a definitive, like, oh, this is, like, a really super tough skill to learn, and, like, you know, this one's really easy. That never set right with me. But, like, I think it would be good to have all the skills start at, like, say we have a certain number of pips by them, and, like, you know, when you have the skill, you start out at, like, you know, 1 pips colored in. You get that 1, like, dice bonus to your dice pool whenever you're building it, because building a dice pool is, like, your attribute plus your skills. So, yeah, so it's like you use that skill with, like, you know, an attribute that has, like, say, a score of, like, 4. You know, 4 plus that, you know, 1 from the skill that you're using that attribute with, and that's 5. You've got a dice pool of 5 now. And if you want to, you can use points to spend on that skill to upgrade the pips up to, I think we talked about 3, I think, to get a maximum of, like, you know, you can add 3 more dice to that dice pool. So, like, if you have, and I expect, like, a lot of people with their, like, professions will do this. Say, for example, like, Lana, like, you know, my character who I plan on playing next, she uses, like, I think the creativity skill as an art, or creativity attribute as an artist, plus, like, that she'll obviously have 5 in, plus, like, 3 and, say, a skill in sewing, because I intend for her to be sort of, like, you know, painter / tailor, so she can build a dice pool maximum of 8.
So, here's the question I have as far as, like, the building up of skills I don't mind, but is a pip in biomechanical engineering worth the same as a pip in fishing?
Are you an engineer or a fisherman?
Well, yeah. But
how bad do you need that fish?
Well, like, a single pip in fishing is putting a worm on a hook and throwing it in the water and hoping for the best.
I will say this is actually something that Jacob and I talked about, like, what should be a skill versus what should be an ability.
Now, I get what you're saying about the difficulty scale that I had.
Yeah. Well, hold on.
But I was going to say, rather than that, why don't we, because we've already talked about specializing, having skills that are associated with various specializations.
Yeah. Hold on one second, because this is very relevant to what I was about to say. Okay. Which is what should be a skill versus what should be an ability. And if you have to, like, you know, have something like very specialized knowledge, it's something that someone of, like, you know, only a certain professional can do, like biomechanical engineering, then it should be an ability. And rephrase that, Jacob, because, like, you put it better than I probably just did.
Well, I think what we need to do then is definitively define the difference between a skill and an ability.
Yeah.
I have one for you, if you would like to hear it.
Sure, you go for it.
We consider certain actions in Cairne to be more significant, and we've chosen to privilege them above others. We've chosen to say that combatants, criminals, desolation striders, spiritualists, mentalists, arcanists, factotums. We have chosen to say, this is what an important person looks like and does in Cairne. That's an arbitrary choice. There's no saying that, you know, a mechanical engineer who's not otherwise any of the professions is not an important person. There's no reason to say a politician is not an important person in Cairne. But we've chosen that these are the things that make a player character.
So
Some combination of them.
we're going with the right stuff, the hero element.
Yes, that's what we chose. We could change that, but we have a set of things that we consider to make you a player character.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm not
Anything that is definitional to those things, to those fields of activity, has to be an ability. Things that you have to sit down and work for years to become a combatant, to become a desolation strider, to become, well, I mean, you become a spiritualist by genetic mutation, but you know what I mean.
Still, you'd have to have the ability to hone.
Yeah, you have to have the
control
ability
it.
to call yourself that thing.
Yeah.
That's an ability. Anything that you could do without any of those is a skill.
Okay.
Anything that,
Anything that can be learned easily.
Yeah.
not even easily. It might be really hard to learn to balance rocks until they're like 500 stacked high
But
in
it's
the middle
more
of the waste.
accessible.
It's just not in any of the professions. If it's not in the professions, we don't care about it. It's just a skill.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how hard it is.
Okay. All right.
If it's not necessary to make you a desolation strider, we don't care. We don't give a shit. It's purely arbitrary, but we at least have some concrete thing to base it on, as we know what the professions are.
Okay. That does make it a little arbitrary and almost ends up combining skills and abilities into like a lump with just a generalized list of quote-unquote skills that anyone can have.
The other difference, that was the difference in how we decide what they are.
And no,
The
I'm
other
not saying
difference
it's bad
is
either. Just
mechanically how they function.
yeah.
Yes.
A profession's ability comes with a longer text block, giving you access to a field of activity that others do not have. Definitionally, somebody without the spiritualist ability to see and speak with ghosts cannot see and speak with ghosts. At least ones that are not manifesting some sort of physical presence,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
happens occasionally.
Yeah. Every now and then.
So, making that a real thing means you have to give the player some text describing it. It has to come with rules about how it can be applied. And maybe it comes at a resource cost. That one doesn't, but some of the other spiritualist abilities have resource costs.
Yeah.
Maybe it describes how you roll with it in particular ways. Skills, none of that. Skills, add dice to dice pools when you apply them, and that's it.
Okay. Okay.
Skills are simpler. Abilities are big, flashy, and special.
I'd be willing to look at that. I'm not saying no at all. Like it sounds solid, but I'd want to look at it. I want to look.
Please
at
give it
lists.
due consideration.
Yeah, I'd like to sit down when we have more time and like list out like these are abilities and these are skills, just so
Yes.
that I can see them. But no, that's not a bad idea.
I can
at-
come
at
up
all.
with some examples for like say the artist if you would like, because I've been
Well, the artist
actually
is going to be our bastard love child with all of this.
yeah, true. Well,
They're
artist
funny ones.
or musician, like if you want me to come up with some examples, I'll come up with some examples like for your due consideration, because I put some thought into
Yeah, well,
abilities and
now-
skills for those classes.
the artist, or not the artist, the musician's going to be interesting because of I really diversified a lot when I started doing the specializations for the musician.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's one thing to be a musician or minstrel or a composer, like the general ones that we all know and love. But I also included like the agent provocateur and the icon and the satirist and the ironic guisard, which was one of those ones like I was talking about. You're going to see some crossover. Like the ironic guisard is going to have some martial abilities because they're basically like a masked crusader. They're the superhero of the group. They don't have to be a really incredible fighter because a lot of it is show and flash. They're Batmaning. They're scaring the opponent. and making them think that they're a lot scarier than they are, puffing up at the bear type thing. But the musician's going to be an interesting one to play with, because I do want some diversity in there. They're not just musicians, they're actors, they're writers, they're comedians, they're you get what I'm saying, like it encompasses a whole genre there. I think that makes it a more vibrant profession overall, and it moves it so far away from the bard.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, write a little something up, like, just for like, say, a core of any of these classes, just to illustrate.
Any ideas that you have, write them down. Let me look at them. Like the worst that'll happen is they'll say, no, I don't like it.
This is just this is purely as a demonstration of, like, the abilities versus skills that we've talked about here.
Yeah, and that's what I want to see. So anything you want to write down and show me.
Yeah.
To
not a
provide
final artist, not a final musician, just a pure demo of concepts.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. That's perfect.
To provide a few concrete examples that we've discussed this evening. Snacks's suggestion of being able to block for your allies.
Yes.
Ability, I would say.
Definitely.
Combatant core ability.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's
swinging a sword, skill.
Parry, ability.
Well, here's the thing, like the defensive ability she's talking about, and then this, I hope this doesn't go off topic, but the idea of saying this is your realm of scope, mechanically, right? These are your abilities, these are your skills, these are the dice pools that you have to work with based on where you're at in your profession. A swordsman with a shield is going to take that defend your buddy ability differently than a martial artist. They can still both do it, but it gives them the creativity to say, this is how I'm doing it.
Yes, there are different narrative interpretations of the ability's use.
So, and I just want to throw that out there because I think it's very important that all of those have that freedom. We don't
totally
want to,
agree.
just so that we don't pigeonhole anybody into saying, here's your list of abilities, this is all you can do.
Yeah, well, I think the ability, like, will just describe, like, you can do this, and this mechanically, but leave room in there for flavor. Like, say a martial artist, like, stands in front of their friend and does, like, a big, like, crosses their arms, like, uses their arms as, like, the actual, defensive shield, or, like, versus, like, an armored combatant that, like, puts an actual shield, things like that.
But I would like to say something about that, though.
Yeah.
Is I don't feel like you have to actually, like, have a shield and carry a shield. The shield doesn't have to be part of you don't have to be equipped with the shield.
No,
agreed.
Use that ability to use that ability. So what I mean by that is, like, when we may be in some place where it's like, oh, look, a service tray, let's use this.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The shield is just flavor.
Yeah,
like, you can do it with your arms, or you can do it with whatever.
And Snacks, you'll love this, because the route you're going down right there, there is a specialization already called the Scrapper, who focuses on improvisational weapons and defense.
Anything and everything.
Yeah. So they would say, oh, look, a surfing tray. Bang!
I would like to point one thing out, okay? And that is that, and I know this is kind of counterintuitive to, a lot of this, is that, as an example, I live in Austin. There are lots and lots of musicians, people who have developed the skill of musician, but doesn't mean they actually have the creativity and talent to be a good one, right? And so it is one of those things that it's like, yeah, you might be a thief, but you're a poor thief because maybe you get caught all the time, right?
Yeah.
So just because you have a skill or an inclination to profession doesn't mean you're going to be the best at it. So I like that kind of little bit of chaotic aspect to that, right?
Yeah. And that's what we want, is the freedom to express these things however you want. They all, like we're talking about, the defending your companion ability. Like, say all of the combatants have them, but a brawler and a fusilier and a scrapper and a mercenary and a soldier and a swordmaster are all going to go at it a different way. They can all do it. Some might use a shield, some might use a serving tray, some might parry with a sword, might redirect with their hand. They're all doing it, but it's the flavor that makes you stand out and feel noticed and counted, I think.
And then there's the aspect of the fact of it, the roll of the dice going, I know how to do this, but oops, I didn't roll well, so oops, I fumbled it. Oh,
Yeah.
I had sweaty palms because I was over here oiling up my guns. I thought I was gonna be ready, and I've got oil on my hands, and my thumb slipped off the hammer, or I accidentally caught my finger in the hammer. Oh,
And by oiling up your guns, you're talking about your arms, right? It's oiling up
Yeah,
the
yeah.
guns.
The gun.
Welcome to the gun show.
So,
He says.
I think we're well agreed that unless it lists a very specific prerequisite, using an ability should be enabled by describing a reasonable way your character could use the ability. Any reasonable way.
Yeah, because we want to keep flavor.
Yeah.
And it's cheesy as can be. I remember one of the things I used to get the biggest kick out of in the original Cyberpunk setting for 2013, if you can believe it, was one of the things that it said early on in the player's handbook was, it's not about how well you do something, it's about how you look doing it.
Yeah.
So
All that matters in life is looking good.
That's right.
that look
That's
good.
Right. That's right. And that's
Who
what
you
a lot
know.
of this is. I mean, the flavor lets you stand out. It makes your combat move memorable, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
That's definitely what we want.
I will say there was a certain satisfaction in, I think, one particular Dungeon Crawl Classic campaign that I was playing in, and I forget, I think it's probably basically a tank or whatever it's called in that. And I had a great hammer. And just the ability at time to take down enemies in a manner of what I recall in my youth, and that was doing the what do you call it? The swinging the hammer at the carnival, and you go.
Yeah, the test your strength.
Yeah, test your strength. Test your strength. And I gotta say, yes, believe it or not, that was like one of the most funnest. That was a very extremely fun campaign that you'd be surprised to be like, yeah, no, I don't necessarily need to shoot or draw an arrow, but I mean, typically I like range attack. But yeah, there's something about just having that, changing it up, and having that sort of power.
Well,
Everybody loves to ring the bell.
that's the joy about what we're doing here too. Is you can be creative and build something insane, to do just that, or you can build somebody that just throws guns at people if you want.
But it does beg the question though of when I think about everyone here, I think basically has played another character previously, or maybe has another one that they're playing through Sigil, right? And whereas for me, it's like when does Uki's story end and become canon, or become that she goes on to another role and we encounter her later, and what would be the next role that I would play in this chapter of Cairne, because I don't have an alter ego in Sigil.
Well, the Sigil and Cairne stories are about to converge into one, and they're going to end together.
Yeah.
So when they're going to both end at the same time, and then Uki, just like everyone else, is going to go on to be a historical entry in the annals of Cairne. Your characters are going to be a prevalent part of history because of the parts that you've played in the Somnambulistic Prophecy, the biggest Somnambulistic Prophecy to date. And you're going to uncover some things, as you already have, that the rest of the world doesn't know, which further impress the power and relevance of the Somnambulistic Prophecies. So Uki and all of the guys are going to have very prevalent roles in that history. Down the road, if we do another, when we do another campaign, there's going to be a time jump, obviously, and you guys will be kind of semi-celebrities in certain circles because of the roles that you've played. So, I mean, wherever we go from here, Uki will always be remembered.
So I did find that reference now from Zweihander and Man at Arms, and what it is basically it is called a shield wall. And what's interesting about that is that one of the skill ranks involved in that is awareness. because that is the ability to have that awareness and be able to be at the ready in order to then be able to do this. So it's basically that you're forming a protective wall of defense, safeguarding your comrades from harm. And while you have armed with a shield that and stand side by side with the chosen ally, you can shield them from incoming attacks. So then that way, when you're engaged in the ally and they fail to parry or cannot do so, then you may immediately parry in their stead. And so I always felt like this is kind of a cool sort of thing because it's sort of, I felt like it was like, yeah, I have to have awareness that something bad happens. I need to step over and do that.
Oh yeah. Well, even you as a sharpshooter, Uki, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say if you wanted to do that, if somebody was coming at your friend and you're standing next to them, you could take the butt of your rifle and redirect their weapon. And
Oh
block
yeah,
it.
that's true.
So I mean,
yeah.
any combatant could do this technically. I mean, a rifle butt to the head hurts.
Yes, it does.
So
All right, so midnight has passed.
yes.
I am burning the last of my oil, but we still have to finish one last thing, I think, today.
All right.
Project management.
Okay.
The bit I hate the most. We've had some discussion. I think what we're probably going to wind up doing is we're going to throw out a lot of the actual text that I have in that playtest document, and we're going to develop some more collaboratively going forward, because we're going to be making some fundamental changes. We're going to have a much clearer and better idea of how skills and abilities work, which I think will be very informative.
Yeah.
Who would like to be contributing actual text to the rules document?
Me.
Yes. That I assumed you were in from the beginning. I assumed Church was in from the beginning.
Yeah.
Everybody else.
No, I don't want anything to do with this crap.
I'm fairly close to saying this, but everybody who would like to contribute text from amongst us, please speak up now.
Yeah.
I'll do it too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I welcome your input, all of you. That's why I give you guys so much free reign and creative license, because as much as I would love to say this is all mine, I did all this, it would just be me at that point, and it would probably be insanely dark and horribly tragic and really depressing. So
It's really important to remember that it all began there, lest we lose sight of the fact that this is your project.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'll always maintain.
Tis the baby.
I'll always maintain the executive decision process, I guess. Though it's very rare I'll pull that card. Like, I gotta really not like something for me to say, nope, that's a no.
Yeah.
So,
Plus, I think we all are writing and developing for Cairne, with his ideas,
Yeah, no, you guys are passionate.
squarely in mind.
You're all very passionate about the world that I've created, and I can't
Yeah.
tell you how much that both humbles and, amazes me.
Yeah, all of the ideas that I propose are, basically, taking what, your base ideas, your, what you've written and just, expanding on them, or, adding in the requisite detail, because, I know for the Volrestad, there's a lot where I'd see you mention this little thing and said, ooh, specifically, it could be because of this, this, and this, things like that.
And
Right,
it's
so-
come a long way. So no, if there's anything that any of you guys feel incredibly passionate about, you want to try your hand at, you want to take a crack at, you want to add to, write up your ideas, and we can talk about them. We can try and do something like this more regularly. It doesn't have to be on stream, but we can get together and talk semi-regularly.
I think that's probably wise if you want to get a full version of this out of this large of a group of writers. But
Yeah.
everybody who's just, counted themselves in, do you have a particular topic in the rules that you would like assigned to you? Do you want to stake a claim on anything now that you say, oh, that's interesting to me, I want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, for me, anything to do with the base mechanics, which, Jacob, you and I have talked so much about it, I'd still want to be, over that to make sure that everyone has like a mechanical base to work from, and then I also want artist and musician, and yeah, that's it.
Right.
Okay.
Everybody else?
I think for me with rules, it's more of just maybe a little bit of like being a bit of a beta tester slash, take a look and go, does this map?
Or you want to be in
how it works.
QA? That's fine.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, a QA. There you go. I like.
Yeah,
No
I
problem.
don't really want to see this turn into pick your class and the things you like to play and write them, and that's it.
What would you like,
um,
Master Miss?
I would prefer to be sort of the broader brush of common sense, if that's a thing that I can sign up to be.
Editor.
That is also QA, sadly.
QA,
That's
editing.
That's
yeah.
how.
Editing.
Yeah,
There is unfortunately not a section in the document that will be called common sense.
It is
sadly,
fantasy
yeah.
gaming.
Yeah, we don't do common here.
Fair enough. Yeah.
No, we don't speak
Would-
common in Cairne.
So, would you like to produce any text for the rules, or would you like to be QA and like first reader?
I think first reader would be nice.
Okay.
All right. Jay, how about you?
Me? I'm gonna keep plugging away.
Oh yeah, you're on everything. I meant our other Jay.
Oh.
Wilhelm.
Yeah, I differentiate y'all by you're Jason, and Wilhelm is Jay.
that works. That works for me.
So,
What you got, Jay?
I'm gonna think about it.
Okay. No rush.
Give it some thought. Give it some consideration. I think
Yeah.
what we should do to push forward on this is we should do another one of these later, off stream,
Yeah.
where we sit down and we do some collaboration on the base rule set, and we begin skeletoning in. We start getting the framework in for all the sections that do need to be written.
Yeah.
That way we can assign them in a very specific and granular manner.
I like
Because
it.
the base rules, everybody needs to be involved that's contributing text. We all need to have a firm grasp of the same interpretation of the base rules
Once
as
get-
we write more sections.
Once we get the base rules, it's gonna be downhill rolling.
Yeah.
Like in a
It
good
gets
way.
much easier there because then you can go off, you can write your bit, you can bring it back, and we can all look at it and say, yeah, I like that, or no, I don't like that.
So
Then
yeah,
you can
let's-
get into a review process.
Let's make that our biggest focus is just getting the core mechanics nailed down in a way that's not only functional but comprehensive and comprehensible
Yes.
in a layman's sense. That like we could even test it by sticking in front of somebody and saying, "Does this make sense?" You know.
Hey, if you read this, does this actually make sense? There's the master miss job,
There's
first
the
read.
master miss job. Exactly.
Church, I have a question because I know that you keep like your big master document of notes and stuff, and ideas. Is that how much do you feel like needs to be written and hashed out, like areas where I could contribute specific to Hyverstedian culture, history, that sort of thing? Because I do feel that obviously, if, some folks working on rules, it's also a great opportunity to flesh out of those aspects of Hyverstedian.
Any of the creative aspects that you have commentary on,
Uh-huh.
by all means, if it's not already in that source material, write it down, send it my way. I'll look it over, and chances are, unless it's just off base, in which case
Right.
I'll explain to you why. Like if it conflicts with something else. But unless it's something like that, I have no problem like
Yeah.
letting you help me flesh that out at all.
yeah, just go at it, because it's not anything mechanical. It's like pure, like, creativity, like, artistic, not really anything that needs to be discussed with anyone else. So yeah, just
send it my
have
way.
at it, start writing,
Yeah, because I've worked with Prim on that. I've worked with
A lot.
Master Miss on that. I've worked with Ginkgo on that, and I've worked with Wilhelm on that. Like I accept the outside input very much, and I appreciate it very much. Like I have a core created, and I flesh out little bits here and there, but you're getting to see the Hyverstedians literally from the boots up. You're in that headspace more than I am, ironically. So yeah, please send anything you got my way.
Yeah, like so much of what the Shawneesians are like have been like my ideas. Like the idea that, you know, they're who they are as a people is actually because like they were Fey touched sometime in their history, and that like, you know, they actually have a shared like common origin with the Volrestad. Like that was all me, baby.
I will say I did finally get some good imagery for the Hyberstedians. There was one
Hey, good.
physical feature that I really wanted to stand out with the Hyberstedians, because they're very Inuit feature-wise, with Norse builds, basically. So they're these huge, hulking individuals with Inuit features, but I wanted them all to have piercing blue eyes inside of all that as a result of the genetic engineering, more or less, that went into their creation. So I got some good imagery of them.
Yeah, I like the new imagery. It was very, yeah.
Yeah, it makes them very striking too when you see them, because, you know, they have the real dark features and then those eyes just kind of peering out at you.
Very distinctive.
So let's set a goal, because I'm almost falling over, guys. I got to get out of here. But
Yeah.
let's set a goal. Let's have one more meeting off stream, not during our usual play session times. Let's make it shorter, because nobody wants to be in a planning or writing meeting for 3 hours. Let's aim for 2 hours max. If we can only make 1 hour, that's fine.
It's fine, yeah.
Print.
Let's get it in the next 2 weeks
Okay.
to get the ball rolling on core rule revisions, get it framed out, and start splitting it up amongst ourselves so we get some text to look at for everything we think needs in there. Let's try and get that in the next 2 weeks.
Tuesday.
How's Tuesday look for everybody?
Tuesday's fine.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Tuesday, what time?
What works for you?
I can basically only do evenings.
Yeah,
Yes.
preferably evening. So anytime after 5 p.m. CST for me.
I'd say 6 for the drive home if I need to.
Okay.
I like 7 or.
You
I
want
like 7.
you want to shoot for 7 to give everyone a chance to unwind?
Votes for 7.
Tuesday.
Any objecting?
It works for me. My sister's been good about having dinner ready early nowadays, so
And this
That's
this isn't on stream, so if you guys want to sit in your underwear and stuff your faces while we're in the meeting, I don't mind.
Tuesday.
You're assuming I don't do that anyways.
True.
Tuesday the 13th is what you're thinking?
Oh no, we're saying in not this Tuesday, I guess, but next.
It can be the
Tuesday.
20th. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
2 weeks is the 27th.
Yeah, Tuesday the 20. Oh,
Well, 2 Tuesdays.
I wanted to get it within the next 2 weeks. Was
Yeah,
my ask.
let's aim for the 20th if we can.
Okay.
Tuesday 20th works for me.
All right.
All right.
That
Ginkgo?
gives everyone a chance to kind of work some stuff too.
Interested in attending?
Yeah, I'll show up.
I hope so.
Good.
I hope so. I like having you there. You have a
Jay?
lot of good input. Jay. He might. Oh, there he is.
And
Is
sorry,
that- no, you're in.
I'm in. Yeah, I can do it. I'll probably be eating or talking around children.
That's
We will
perfectly
also
all
be
right.
doing this.
Perfectly all right. All right. Well, I tell you what, real
Excellent.
quick. I am going to end the stream. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you had a good time and this was interesting for you. It was for us.
Welcome to project planning.
It is, and
It's a land of hellish things.
we will be back with Sigil Confidential next week, same time, same channel. So don't miss it. Also, Wednesday something's happening. Thursday something. No, we got Storm King's Thunder Wednesday, Zombicide Thursday. Walking Dead maybe Friday. We'll see. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll see you then. Good night.
Good night, everyone.